on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra.
Hello and welcome to Interlagos. It's round 21 of the World Championship. And I can tell you what, it's hotting up everything and all eyes will be on this grid, which is quite mixed up. Max Verstappen goes for his 17th win of the season, but there are plenty of people who want to challenge him.
It almost looks like Max is driving into the night there.
The sparks illuminate. You could be mistaken for thinking we're under the lights in Singapore. We're in Sao Paulo, and I think the rain is starting to arrive. Verstappen gets across the line. It's a 1:10.7 to go provisional pole.
This is, of course, insane weather. And Charles and I were just discussing, like, our laps, they felt terrible, but I don't know. I think the wind started to change and started to be very strong, and we lost a lot of lap time because of it.
As the roar of applause from the garage and the grandstands for Lando Norris, who will start the sprint race from P1.
Well done, I guess. I don't know. I feel so bad, but so good.
Lights out for the sprint, and we are racing in Sao Paulo. It's an even start from the front two, but Verstappen is going to have the inside line on Norris. Verstappen through on Norris as they plunge down through the set of S's. Verstappen takes the lead from Norris. The final sprint of the season goes to Max Verstappen, who crosses the line and wins the Sao Paulo sprint. Lando Norris comes home in second, and Sergio Perez will round out the top three.
As you can tell, it's a sprint weekend. We've already had one race, which was won by Max Verstappen, you guessed it, but Lando Norris was there, he was up, and he was trying his hardest to win. It wasn't to be, but can he do it today? That's the question. Alongside me is our lead commentator, Harry Benjamin, and we know Max Verstappen will start from pole, but behind him, he's got all sorts of people who could challenge him.
He does indeed. Charles Leclerc shares the front row with him. Also the two Aston Martins right behind. They share the second row. Lance Stroll ahead of Fernando Alonso, perhaps benefiting from the rather bizarre qualifying we had on Friday, where the storm clouds came and then the rain came. But Aston Martin have been looking quicker. Feels like they've started to understand the upgrades that they've brought to that car over the last couple of races. So the other reason is they've got nothing to lose. Neither has Charles Leclerc, and he might have actually the better line going into turn one. He's got the Verstappen line from yesterday. The inside, it's all on the start. Down to turn one, that's where they've got to do it. That's the best chance to catch Verstappen.
Alice Powell, W Series race winner, is also alongside me. The start is going to be one to watch. It always is. What is this start like? What do you have to do at Interlagos to make it work for you?
Well, it's a very, very short run down into turn one, and Charles Leclerc has already said, building up to this race today here in Interlagos, he said, I'm going to give it everything going down into turn one. Essentially, he's got nothing to lose. Well, neither's Max Verstappen, but he has got a new set of softs available. However, so has Max and several others starting in the top 10. So Charles needs to try and go down the inside into turn one. However, you need to try and really complete the move like we saw Max do yesterday on Lando Norris, because we've got this sort of S section, haven't we, where if you're on the outside for turn one, you're then on the inside for turn two, but then that's the outside for turn three. So you really, if you're going to try and make your move down the inside there into turn one at the start, you've really got to try and make sure that you heavily compromise the driver that you're going down the inside of.
I mean, we saw so many overtakes down that section with DRS enabled as well. That won't be there for the first couple of laps. But Harry, we're expecting to have a lot of overtakes. You're going to have your work cut out, because you always do here in Brazil. But just talk me through how you think this is going to go.
Well, I have absolutely no idea, Jenny.
This is good.
You're right about the overtakes. Highest number of overtakes on average at this Sao Paulo circuit. And that's what the sprint did give us yesterday. It gave us that entertainment and a glimpse into what we might and hope to have this time around. Weather looks like it's going to stay stable as well. So no chance of any rain. In fact, the risk of rain is precisely 0%. But the thing we saw yesterday is that the DRS, I think, so you've got the DRS, the drag reduction system, running from turn 15, the last sort of left-hand right-hand kink that brings you onto the main straight down to turn 1. Then you get it again on the exit of turn 3 down to turn 4. So obviously those are the 2 key overtaking spots where some great moves were made, but it's all about making it stick, because we saw yesterday Daniel Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri was battling hard with Carlos Sainz's Ferrari. He'd get him going into turns 1 and 2, the Senna S's, but then Sainz would just get him straight back again at the end of turn 4. So you need to be able to have that little bit of pace advantage, and perhaps it's going to come down to how much life have you got in your tyres as well when it comes to the overtakes. But I think we're going to get a lot.
Yeah, no, I think you took the words straight out of my mouth. The tyres are going to be so key for today. Actually, the weather is 10 degrees, the air temperature is 10 degrees lower than it was yesterday, but the track temperature is much higher because of these clear skies, the solar radiation really heating up the track. So the drivers actually came up yesterday after the sprint race and said, these Pirellis, they don't feel great round here. We're struggling with degradation, which
never
of course,
heard that before.
which of course we like to see. It's a 2-stop strategy, which is expected. I doubt many people will run the hard tyre. It's too slow and it's prone to overheating due to its stiff construction. The soft is the better tyre. As I said, you know, the top 10, majority of them have a new set available. Max, Charles, the 2 Aston Martin drivers, and Lando, they've all got a brand new set they can pop on, or they could even start the race on if they wished. But a new medium can actually be better than a used soft. So strategy will play a huge part in today, and also, well, mainly will time management.
Okay, let's run you through the grid then in case you weren't here on Friday. It's Verstappen on pole position. He's alongside Charles Leclerc. Then it's Stroll, Alonso. Superb qualifying performance from the Aston Martins, if you take the last 2 weekends into consideration especially. Then it's Hamilton, Norris, Sainz, Russell dropping back 2 spaces to 8th. Then Perez, Piastri even, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Albon, Ocon, Gasly, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Bottas, Sargent and Zhou making up the top, all the 20. Let's hear from the person that is in pole position. He's won 16 races so far. It's Max Verstappen.
Welcome, Max Verstappen, here to race day in Sao Paulo. We'll walk you up to your car. It's at the very front, of course. Pole position today, a well-managed win in the sprint race yesterday. What did you learn from that?
Yeah, it's all about the tyres. I think, again, today it's a bit cooler, for sure. But, of course, today high fuel loads. So, all about looking after the tyres, but we're looking forward to it.
How wary are you of the McLaren pace and indeed Mercedes in the mix as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of people learned from yesterday, so I think still there will be some tight battles out there.
That's a good point, Alice, isn't it? A lot of people did do their homework yesterday. We saw the Mercedes slipping back, not having the race they wanted, but they can alter things with that setup to make it a little bit better, even though they're in Parc Fermé rules.
Yeah, they can. They've got several options that they can do that's available to them, of course. But yeah, they really did struggle yesterday. I did wonder, George Russell set the fastest lap, believe it or not, of the sprint race yesterday, but he really came out of the blocks really, really quickly. And I just wonder whether he just destroyed his tyre doing that, because, you know, he's got such a great start and was on the back of Max. We thought, well, here we go. You know, George is going to be challenging for the win. But then he just started to drop off, and so did Lewis Hamilton. And by the end of it, Lewis Hamilton was setting lap times that were a lot slower than those behind him, sort of all the way down to 14th place. So they'll be hoping that they've made some changes overnight that can certainly help that. Otherwise, they're in for a very long afternoon.
We've had some talk over on the radio from George Russell as well. He was saying that there was lots of dust coming from the front brakes. He's not the only person. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine had his side pods off as well. They're fixing something down there. So with just over 5 minutes till the start of the race, it's not all plain sailing for everybody. Let's just work down the grid and hear from Charles Leclerc. He's starting in 2nd place.
Charles Leclerc, you have a tyre advantage coming into today. How important will that be and how will you use it?
I'm really looking forward to today's race. Our main competitors are Mercedes, and we've got a tyre advantage over them, so I'll do absolutely everything to beat them today, and let's see what's possible.
I'm sure you were watching Max Verstappen start from P2 yesterday. You'll be starting from that spot today?
Yeah, it looked good yesterday. I hope it will as well today.
What is the optimum result for Ferrari?
I hope a podium. I love Interlagos. I've never been on the podium here, so I hope today is the day and that we can score good points.
Awesome. Best of luck, Charles. Thanks.
Is that realistic on the podium today? I've never had a podium here. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, that's a crazy stat, isn't it? I think for Leclerc it is a reasonable ask, but I think it's been fine margins all weekend long so far. Remember, Lando Norris has been exceptionally quick in the McLaren, and he is starting from 6th. He's going to carve through the field. He will end up on the podium. So I think it's going to be Leclerc gunning for 3rd place, and it's going to be between him and Alonso come the end of this Grand Prix, I think. That's my little prediction.
Speaking to some of the engineers ahead of this race, it was really interesting, their chat about the Aston Martins. They take up the 2nd row of the grid. They have been quite gentlemanly towards each other all season, with Stroll and Fernando Alonso playing ball, but they're starting alongside each other. They haven't done that a huge amount before, and how is this going to go down, Alice?
Well, we'll see launching off the line. Obviously, Alonso technically he has the inside line going down into turn 1, so if he gets a better launch, I would expect that Lance should, in theory, give him enough space. However, Lance could be a little bit unpredictable, can't he, sometimes? And he's desperate to get a good result. This is one of his best finishes at this Grand Prix here last year. So he'll be hoping to better that and obviously get a podium finish, because he's had some tough races, hasn't he, recently? And, it's about time that he really sort of got himself together. And in all fairness to him, it was a very tricky qualifying, and I think he did a stellar job to out-qualify his team out. And they both looked pretty strong in the race yesterday. So I agree with Harry. I think, Alonso is going to be up there in the mix to get a podium. Do we write Lance off? I wouldn't say so on the pace that they both had yesterday, but I think Lance is just a little bit more inconsistent than Alonso, and you can sort of almost rely on Alonso a lot more than you can Lance.
Yeah, best qualifying for Lance since you've got to go back to Austria for the Red Bull Ring for Lance Stroll. But you're right, the pace yesterday was good, and Aston Martin have been quite happy with their race pace since Friday, really. Remember, it was a sprint weekend, so we only had the one practice session, and they were one of the teams that was quite happy with what they saw. Finally, having brought a raft of new upgrades across the last couple of Grand Prix, not working out, running back-to-back different setups to try and basically run a test session. So I think they're in with a good chance of fighting hard, but I know Stroll is the son of the owner of the team, but Alonso is Fernando Alonso, and if he is faster, he will be going through on Lance Stroll.
Lewis Hamilton will start in 5th place alongside Lando Norris. He's had a good weekend so far. Let's hear from him.
I just have a few seconds. I was looking at Landinho bracelet here. Landinho means little Lando. How do you like it?
I love it here, especially in my Palmeiras shirt. So I'm excited. I had a good day yesterday, and hopefully we have another fun day today.
You said you're on the top of your car as ever. What you expecting?
I don't know, a podium. A podium is our plan, is our target today. So go forward and put on a good show.
So that's Lando Norris speaking to Mariana Becker. I think a lot of people would love Lando to just lunge and get a really good result here, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and it was a shame about the sprint yesterday. I don't think Lando Norris could have done anything, really. There was talk about, was he a bit cautious? But even if he had a blinder of a start, Verstappen also got a brilliant start, and he had the advantage of going down the inside, and everyone is a bit more careful in the sprint, because you don't want to take a huge amount of damage and risk something for the Grand Prix the next day. So I think he will be buoyed by the result from yesterday. They know they've got a good car underneath them, and Lando Norris has been in some fine form of recent times. Who's he starting around? He's down in 6th, isn't he? So he's got Hamilton, and he's got to his side, he's got Alonso in front of him as well. So it's just going to be all about, I think, in that area of the grid, surviving that concertina down through the centre S's into turn 1.
Yeah, just getting news of the tyres as well. It looks like there are some interesting choices with Verstappen. Had a new set of softs, but he's chosen to go on to his old set at the moment. Everyone else is on softs, but the ones who have new around him have chosen the new.
Yeah, so Leclerc and the two Astons are starting on their new softs, and Verstappen and Norris have saved theirs for a little bit later on. So I expect that they're going to have better grip, aren't they? Those on the new softs launching off the line.
Well, it is time for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Let's hand over to Harry Benjamin.
Well, it's a place where comebacks have been raised, championships won. We love Sao Paulo. It's time for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Position, his 11th pole of the season. It's Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Alongside him is Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. It's a row 2 full of Aston Martins. Lance Stroll is 3rd, Fernando Alonso 4th. Lewis Hamilton rounds out the top 5 ahead of Lando Norris in the McLaren in 6th. Carlos Sainz is 7th in front of George Russell with a grid penalty. He starts 8th in front of Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull in 9th, and Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren rounds out the top 10. The two Hasses of Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen are 11th and 12th. Alex Albon is 13th in front of Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, who goes from 14th, also had a grid penalty. His teammate Pierre Gasly is right behind him in 15th. Yuki Tsunoda is 16th in the AlphaTauri in front of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo is 18th. Logan Sargent in the Williams is 19th. And last on the grid in P20 is the Alfa Romeo of Zhou Guanyu. And we have just seen some exceptional scenes. Charles Leclerc looks like he's not even going to be able to take part in this Grand Prix. He is in the wall, facing the wrong way. He's gesticulating with his hands. I'm just trying to locate where that is. I'm wondering if it's coming into the fast right-hander of turn 6. We'll get another look at it, but his head is hung low. He's still in the cockpit. Yes, okay, so, he's moving, but that is a damaged Ferrari. The front wing is damaged, the right wing end plate is hanging off, the tyres have taken a pummeling as well, and the Ferrari garage can't believe it. The man starting in 2nd place in this grid, in the wall, on the formation lap. Let's hear from him.
No, I lost the hydraulics. Why the f*** am I so unlucky?
Lost the hydraulics. Charles Leclerc pulls off in the gap between the tyre barriers. He will not start the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and it was coming into that right-hander, and he just comes in spinning backwards, Alice.
Yeah, I mean, he's warming up his tyres, and then trying to listen in. Yeah, the rear just goes. So, and at first I thought, oh, Charles, what have you done? Spinning around there, making a mistake. But yeah, you see a big sort of puff of smoke come out the rear of the car, and then he spins around. So I agree with him. That is so unlucky. But that's made Max Verstappen's job even easier now, unless one of the Aston Martins on the brand new set of softs can make a good launch, and Fernando Alonso's got clear track in front of him.
There will be a gap where Charles Leclerc's Ferrari should be. There will be no 2nd place on this grid. Max Verstappen will have the front row to himself. They've all made it round the lap now. Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo will be the last car to line up in 20th position, but on the front row, on his own, on pole position, it's the reigning champion, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Behind him are the 2 Ferraris, no one to his side. It's all lights to the lights, and foot to the floor. Slight delay for the start as he gets away. Verstappen then with a clean getaway. Norris straight to the inside of the 2 Aston Martins. Contact at the rear. There's a Williams spinning off into the side along with one of the Haas cars as well. I think it might be Nico Hülkenberg. Verstappen makes it down through the centre S's and leads the Grand Prix out of turn 2. Then Lando Norris with an exceptional start has managed to get up into 2nd place in this race. Lewis Hamilton down the inside of the Aston Martin gets into 3rd just as the safety car comes out and neutralises the race. What a start to this Grand Prix. It's been a weird weekend so far, and the twists and turns in this tale just keep going, Alice Powell.
I mean, whatever next? What are we going to see next? Lando Norris, wow, what a start from all the way. Okay, let's say he started in 5th position, because obviously Charles was out, but he wasn't even on his brand new set of softs, and he powered up down the inside of pretty much all of those in front of him, all bar Max Verstappen. But out of the car now is Kevin Magnussen, and that, yeah, of course, was contact with Alex Albon, and even before they reached turn 1.
It was Kevin Magnussen in the Haas and Alex Albon in the Williams that are involved in that collision in the mid-pack, and the rear and the front left. In fact, the entirety of that Williams is completely damaged. We're just going to get a look at the race start, and as it was a bit of a long wait until the lights went out. I was quite keen.
You were really ready to go, weren't you? But Lando, he just gets that perfect launch, and actually neither of the Aston Martins got a good launch, and further back it was just too many though. Too many of them were trying to go for the same piece of road, and a piece of tyre flew off and hit the other Haas. But it was just a contact there. Magnussen made contact with the rear left of Alex Albon, and that speared him into the wall. The sound you can hear now is on board with Alex Albon. Got a good launch, goes to the right hand side of Magnussen. Magnussen has a car on his left, comes out, and actually is his teammate, and then he comes over and that's it. Contact is done. Magnussen was the meat in the sandwich there, because the Hulkenberg Haas came across. The Williams was to Magnussen's outside, and off speared the Williams and the other Haas, and that wheel off of the Williams' Albon car then was sort of being collected by the left side pod of Nico Hulkenberg's head, then flew off and hit the rear wing of one of the Alpha Tauris at quite some force. This is the sound of Esteban Ocon and the Alpine, who had a grade A view from it right from behind, as suddenly the tarmac in front clears, and he's got a clear view in front of him going down through the Senna S's. Poor starts from both Aston Martins on row 2. That allowed Hamilton and Norris to sweep round either side from them, and then it was just a bit of a concertina effect for the Haas of Magnussen and the Albon of Williams, Jenny Gow.
Well, safety car has come out. The medical car has also come out. It was Magnussen who got out the car and waved to the crowd, so he looked all right. Albon had more damage to his car, more damage to him. He's just got into the medical car and he'll be escorted back.
And it's a red flag while they clean up the mess from turn 1. All cars were already told to go through the pit lane under the safety car, but because of the damage that has been strewn across the runoff and the exit at turn 1 by particularly the Williams, but also barrier repairs needing to be done as well to the outside, Alice, as Oscar Piastri is already back in his garage and awaiting for some work. Let's hear from him.
Oscar, kill the engine. The car is not safe to continue.
And yes, unusual to see a driver in the garage. Normally, if it's red flag and they've made it back, they'll line up at the end of the pits in a queue in the pit lane. So Piastri then with an issue. Looks like Ricciardo's day might be done as well on the Alpha Tauri. He's in the garage. I wonder if that was the car that took the beating from the Haas tyre. And Charles Leclerc has still not even made it back to the pit lane yet, having not even started this Grand Prix. What a mess.
So what Charles is doing is telling the marshals, get that car back to the garage. I don't know whether he will be allowed to start, but he was just gesticulating there to the marshal, like, quick. And he was actually running. He was running down the outside of the circuit, trying to hurry the marshals up to pick up the car. So, they'll be looking to rescue that Ferrari, because we don't know the extent of how long this red flag will be. More from Piastri.
Oscar, that is a red flag. We're going to see if we can repair the car.
I think Daniel Ricciardo's in the garage as well with getting repairs done too, and we'll see then if Charles if someone will throw some luck over to Charles Leclerc and his car can get back to the pits and Ferrari can start the work.
Well, the rest of the surviving cars make their way to the pit lane and come to a halt as they then get greeted by their mechanics. Just worth noting then that Alex Albon is out of this race in the Williams. He is fine. Charles Leclerc was out on the formation lap. He is desperately trying to get the marshals to get that Ferrari car back into the pit so they might be able to repair it and get back in this race. Kevin Magnussen involved in that crash in turn 1 out of the race. He is okay as well, and Daniel Ricciardo is out of his car, having taken a little bit of damage too, and the Alpha Tauri team are working on that car in the garage.
So Piastri's problem was his rear wing. It broke after being clipped by Magnussen, so they're trying, as you say, to repair that, and Charles Leclerc, just images of him just desperately trying to get that Ferrari back. It looks like it's just parked on the bank up there.
they're not getting that Ferrari back, Alice, are they? It is parked on the grassy verges. There's no manic rush around it. It's not coming back to the
if
pit
I
lane.
was Charles, I'd just go and find the pickup recovery truck myself and just drive and somehow work out
These
how
are the
to
days
pick
where we
the
need the T-car back, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. But it was actually my mistake. It was Hulkenberg that was in the sandwich and had that contact. He then hit into his teammate Magnussen, which then span round in front of Albon. But a lot of damage there. Albon is all okay from what I can understand. But I'll tell you who's possibly going to be the loser here, and that will be Lando Norris. We've completed 3 laps, but I have a feeling that you have to complete a certain length, a certain distance, a certain amount of laps before you can stick to the order that we have currently, as the tractor is too busy, sorry Charles, but collecting Alex Albon's stricken car, and there's a lot of damage to that Williams.
So a red flag then, with 3 laps of the race completed. Verstappen led from pole, Lando Norris making his way up into second, Hamilton third, Alonso, Stroll the top 5, Russell, Perez, Sainz, Ocon, Tsunoda the top 10, Gasly, Bottas, Joe, Sargent and Hulkenberg the top 15, Piastri, who we've heard from with issues, they are frantically working on that car in the McLaren garage. He is registered as 16th. Then comes Daniel Ricciardo, also with issues for AlphaTauri. He's registered as 17th. Out go Magnussen, Leclerc and Albon. But the sun is shining down on this Sao Paulo circuit. Cars are out of... drivers are out of their cars, I should say, and just having debriefed with their engineers. Jenny Gow.
It's obviously going to be quite a lengthy delay as they play pickup with all of the damaged parts of the car that need to be brought back, and obviously 2 cars going to each other, they'll both need to be recovered. But does this give another opportunity for Norris? I mean, we saw him starting P6 before. If they take the order from where it is now, he'll start alongside Max Verstappen, and if they have a normal restart again, this could be game on.
Yeah, and I wonder whether they can obviously change their tyres in red flags as well. So I wonder whether, if I was Lando, I mean, this is obviously there's a lot of other things that can affect with the strategy. They've got their own strategy they're going with. But his best chance really of getting a good launch in front and getting ahead of Verstappen is bolting on that new set of soft tyres. That will just give you that extra launch. But saying that, from that start, he didn't really need it, did he? He absolutely swept past the 2 Aston Martins who were on the new soft tyre, but they really didn't seem to get going, did they? Like, very similar start between the 2 of them.
They were both angled in as well on that second row of the grid, as almost as if they were trying to point to each other and that gap that was there. And I don't think they needed to do it. I don't think they were maybe in the right mindset. They haven't had that second row start for a long time. It just seems slightly off, and for Hamilton and Norris to both get round the outsides respectively and get away, it was lazy from both of them. Sluggish.
Yes, I mean,
Ooh,
I'm not
strong words, Jenny Gow.
I'm not entirely sure why they were slightly angled. You know, of course you will angle your car either where the threat is coming from, where you think the most threat around you will be, or whether the gradient in the track is better, or Brands Hatch Indy, for example, if you're starting on the top of the hill, you angle your car slightly down because you're going to get a better run, but that can of course induce some wheel spin at the same time, as we're seeing Charles Leclerc now plod back to his garage, shaking his head. Doesn't look like they will be recovering his car, which is a massive disappointment for him. He's been walking around a fair while though. Do you remember last year when Magnussen and Ricciardo had a collision, and Magnussen was kind of stranded in the middle of the track for like the entirety of the race because he couldn't cross the track and he couldn't get back round, find an opening to get back to the pit lane. Leclerc is being escorted by a marshal, so perhaps they've got the right way, the right route for him to get back. But red flag conditions then here in Brazil for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, the 20th race of this 2023 F1 season. Just 2 more to go after this one in Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi, but a red flag out because of a big collision in turn 1 with Kevin Magnussen's Haas and Alex Albon's Williams. Charles Leclerc was out on the formation lap with hydraulic issues that he was reporting over the radio, and it
was a perfectly clear start as far as Max Verstappen was concerned. Away from pole, he didn't have anybody alongside him. That's where Leclerc should have been. And we're just seeing more images of the start replay as well, and seeing the effects of some of the other cars who weren't directly involved in the collision between Albon and Magnussen, but felt the after effects. Hulkenberg feeling the effects, so was Piastri in the McLaren, and Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri picking up debris from a flying tyre. And that's the sound you can hear of Albon clouting first the Haas of Kevin Magnussen and then the wall before coming to a stop.
Yeah, Albon couldn't have done anything differently there. He got a good launch, was alongside Nico Hulkenberg, and then actually Magnussen was the one, didn't he, really, to come across in front of Hulkenberg, and then Hulkenberg got a whack from behind from someone as well. So sound you can hear now is on board with Esteban Ocon. He's got a great view of the incident and actually did a really good job of avoiding it. Swings to the left hand side, a carcass of a tyre is flying down the track, and then it's the sea opens and he's got this great view of the battle for the top 10 in front of him. But now it's Daniel Ricciardo's turn. The sound you can hear, he's even further back down the road. Just carcass of the tyre, I'm guessing, is going to hit the top of him, which I'm guessing has done some damage to the rear wing of the car.
You couldn't have made that up. It literally, that tyre got flicked up, the carcass, and then a direct hit on his rear wing, which broke it in half. You could, if you'd have tried, you couldn't do that again.
If you're race control, Alice, how are you calling that incident?
Well, it's technically Magnussen's fault. He moved across to the right, from a driver's point of view, moved over to the right-hand side. He was probably expecting Hulkenberg to move right to open up the space for him, which, why is he going to do that? But he didn't realise that Magnussen didn't realise that Alex Albon was on the right of Hulkenberg. So if you have to put a blame to anybody, then unfortunately it's going to be Kevin Magnussen.
Well, arguably he's paid a price of going out of this Grand Prix. A better start for Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull this time around. He had a shocking start in the sprint race, but a much better start. He managed to make up a few positions and get up to 7th by the time the red flag was out. And this is the sound of that Red Bull making its way through the centre S's. We do have an order for the restart, and it looks like they're going to keep what happened after 3 laps. So it will be Verstappen ahead of Norris, then Hamilton, Alonso, Stroll, Russell. Then it will go to Perez in 7th. Then we will have Sainz, Ocon, Tsunoda will be the top 10. Then it goes to Gasly, Bottas, Joe, Sargent, Hulkenberg, and if they can make it, Piastri and Ricciardo will be the 16th and 17th cars to line up on the grid. So that's great news if you're Lando Norris. It's great news if you're somebody like Yuki Tsunoda, who started down in 16th, and after the great pace that AlphaTauri showed yesterday in the sprint to now get a top 10 starting position, they'll be very happy with that.
Hamilton must be twitchy for this restart because he loves this track. He loves being in Brazil. They made him an honorary citizen last year, and he knew that he could do something. And he's starting P3 now. He's got Alonso behind him, Norris in front of him, but he's done a really good first race start. He needs to replicate that and see if he can get the same traction, see if he can get the same luck in a way, and it breaks for him the same way that gives him that opportunity to try and wrestle with Norris and Verstappen. The top 4 are the 4 that you think would most likely be able to challenge.
Yeah, no, exactly. They need to try and replicate that launch, but Max Verstappen, by the time he got, he didn't have anyone alongside him because Charles broke down, but by the time he got into turn 1, he had about a 3 to 4 car length gap to anybody else. So Max has been on fire with getting off the line since all those issues that they had with getting off the line. So yeah, it's down to Lando that's sitting on the inside there, but one thing to also note is that incident sort of spread across part of the grid, essentially, that going into turn 1. They're obviously going to have the sweepers out, and the marshals do a great job, as always, sweeping it. But, you know, as much as you can sweep, maybe there'll still be a little bit of dust affecting. Actually, they're putting some dust down through some of the oil that has spilt. That is totally off the circuit anyway, so that's not going to affect it. But just seeing an aerial shot now of where the incident happened, and track looks clean. But of course, we have seen quite a bit of debris that has been left on the track. And Alonso, he got a puncture, didn't he, in free practice. Esteban Ocon had a screw in his tyre. So maybe that will come into play too. Who knows?
Now, I am all for being optimistic and trying to sell the coverage.
Oh, no,
you two
what are you going to do?
Don't do this.
But even if Verstappen falls back to P2 or P3, he's going to come through to win the race. I think we've got to be honest about that.
Why are you bringing everyone down?
Who is
It's
this
Sunday
guy?
afternoon.
Who's this guy?
It's 20 past 5. Everyone wants to be G'd up.
Okay.
Oh,
well, I just
come
thought I'd add, you know, because Andrew's not here now today, so I figured I better just bring in a bit of realism into the commentary.
Yeah,
but
I can hear Benny saying, but he's still going to win, even if he dropped to 10th.
But if he does drop back, I suppose then you do have to deal, of course, with the managing your tyres in traffic, as you've discussed, and the DRS trays that were forming towards the rear of the field, certainly in yesterday's sprint. So it does make it harder, of course, but I mean, the RB19 is and will be and will go down in history as one of the best cars to have ever graced Formula One.
Yeah, Lando's going to win. That's it. I've said it. Lando will get his win today. Why not?
If there was anyone to do it, at this time, we've seen McLaren getting into their track, getting into their groove. We've seen Mercedes coming up to speed. We've seen Fernando Alonso doggedly determined as always. I'm not saying never say never. I'm trying to keep as optimistic as possible.
Well, that's why I've just gone that Lando's going to win. You know, let's put something different out there. Sort of going with Harry and Benny saying Max will win. I don't want to be realistic today.
Yeah.
All right, fine. Look, I just thought I had to do my duty there. I feel like I did. But hey, Alonso, Norris, let's see what happens. We are going to get a restarted race in just under 10 minutes time. 31 minutes past the hour, 2:31 local time in Sao Paulo. Still work going on in the McLaren garage on Oscar Piastri's car. It's up on the jacks. The front wing is completely off as Lando Norris walks past and back into the pit lane. At the moment, we've got some grandstands and we've got cars stopped in the pit lane. That's because the Sao Paulo Grand Prix has been red flagged after a big crash towards turn 1 on lap 1 involving Alex Albon in the Williams and Kevin Magnussen in the Haas further back. They're both okay. There was also drama on the formation lap as well. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari was supposed to start second in this race alongside Max Verstappen, but he conked out on the formation lap with hydraulic issues and wasn't able to take the start. It was a clear start then for Verstappen, who managed to stay in the lead, and Norris, with an epic start from 6th, managed to get up into 2nd, and that's how they'll restart this race. Verstappen will start the race from P1 alongside Charles Leclerc, and that will get going at about 31 minutes past the hour here on 5 Sport Extra. Right then, the drivers are getting up and ready and layered up once more as Lewis Hamilton zips up his overalls. Glasses come off, so do the headphones. It's game time again, Jenny.
Well, almost. But I just wondered, from Alice's point of view, how did you kill that time when there was a red flag and you had to wait for the restart and you had all of this going on behind you?
Okay, yeah. Debris hit my rear wing. It's broken. Yeah, I tried to miss it. I think it was a piece of a tyre in the air. But it got my rear wing.
Yeah, copy that.
That was Daniel Ricciardo reporting after getting hit by the loose wheel from, or the loose wheel carcass.
I just hope we beat this clutch as soon as we're back in parallel.
Copy that. We'll speak about it later, please.
Sainz hoping to bin his clutch in the Ferrari as he made his way down through turns 1 and 2 and up through the gears on the back of Sergio Perez, and watching Perez fight with Russell as he rapidly went down the left-hander of turn 4. So we've heard from Ricciardo and how he got his damage, and now Sainz, here's Gasly.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. Don't really upwards.
Recharge on.
Yeah, it's just one guy is focusing more on his mirrors than ahead of him, but anyway.
Pierre Gasly in the Alpine was another driver who had a good view of the big crash ahead of him, and those were his reports. I think, did I say to Steve that Charles Leclerc was starting alongside Verstappen? Obviously I meant that there would be Lando Norris will be starting alongside him. Did I say Lando?
No one will ever know.
Well, I don't really listen to
Producer Joe's
Harry,
having a go at me, so you know.
I can answer Jenny's question now.
Oh yeah, go on.
Everyone has been on bated breath just waiting for your answer.
Well, obviously it depends on the red flag, but the drivers won't get a real rough idea of how long the red flag will be. You can have a little look and see, oh, there's a lot of tyre damage or a lot of debris, so we're going to be at least 15 minutes. If you need to pop to the toilet, then
is that always first on the list?
Yeah,
pop
usually it's psychological. Sometimes I've got in the car and gone, oh, I need to go to the toilet. Yeah, well, you don't want to do it in your seat, do you? I need to go to the toilet. And then by an hour and a half after the race is finished, I'm like, oh yeah, I needed the loo about 2 hours ago. So you forget it's just all psychological and nerves. But you just try and keep yourself focused. So every driver's different. Some, like we saw Lewis Hamilton do there, put his headphones in, listen to a bit of music, keep himself to himself, have a little chat to his engineer. Others will be joking around on the pit wall. Daniel Ricciardo, he went to the pit wall, was having a bit of a giggle with some of his team. And then you'll get others that might prefer to actually just stay sat in the car because they're in that bubble. They've got that helmet on, they can put their visor down, they can shut their eyes, they can do some visualization, whatever sort of goes and floats their boat, really.
What was your tickle? What would you like to do?
I would like to, well, depending, if we had this kind of stoppage, which we've been stopping for, 20 minutes now, would you say? Something like that.
Has it been that long already?
I don't know. Time flies when you're having fun. I would probably hop out, because this is, okay, it's not too warm, but hop out, sort of take some water on. If I needed to pop to the loo, which I probably would have needed to, pop to the loo, why not? And sort of just chat to the team and be like, right, if I'm starting in a different place, what's my strategy at the start? What we're going to do differently? Is there anything we can do differently? And then that'll be it, really, because by the time you've done all that, you're back in. But I'm not necessarily one to just sort of sit there in the car, visor down.
You know, Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, no,
have a little
Kimi
sleep.
Räikkönen. I'd rather sort of had a chat to the team kind of thing, really, as we are just seeing now Alex Albon back in the garage, pat on the back from some of his peers in the team. He is out of his suit as well, and all doing okay, and has a smile on his face, which of course is nice to see.
First retirement it will be for Alex Albon since the Japanese Grand Prix a couple of months ago now. Still waiting for this race to be restarted. It will be 31 minutes past the hour, so just a few more minutes to go. The incident between Albon and Magnussen has been noted by the race control for causing a collision, so we'll bring you up to speed if there is any change in that.
Just on the radio that we heard, whilst they rudely interrupted our conversation, the radio from Carlos Sainz was really interesting. Perez?
Do effectively a formation lap to the grid and then standing start.
There we go, it's a standing start for everyone. Bin this clutch was what Sainz said. I found that really interesting. They said, let's discuss it back at Maranello. But there's obviously a lot of discourse at Ferrari at the minute. They're not happy.
Yeah, that reply from his engineer there was, please stop talking. We're not going to be discussing this now. But in a very polite, he was very polite about it, wasn't he? He even said please.
Those are the cheers you can hear from those still in the grandstand, eagerly awaiting the restart of this race. Just hearing news from AlphaTauri that Daniel Ricciardo will be able to restart this race, but if any of those cars, which included Hülkenberg's Haas and Piastri's McLaren, who were having work done on those cars in the garage, if they were able to fix those cars and get them back out, they will go around for the formation lap and then restart this race from the pit lane. They will not take to the start of or to the start grid. That will be reserved, the front row at least, for Max Verstappen, who will have company this time around in the form of Lando Norris in the McLaren after his exceptional start on the initial lights out phase. Charles Leclerc, if you're wondering where he is, well, he didn't even make it round half distance through the formation lap with his Ferrari. You speak of Ferrari, Jenny, and trouble brewing, well, at least on Carlos Sainz's side. Well, trouble absolutely for Charles Leclerc with a potential hydraulics issue, forcing him and his Ferrari out of this Grand Prix before it even started.
Yeah, he's been speaking about that more and not speaking about that more because he said it was the hydraulics. I know that now, but I can't go into too much detail. So another thing to be discussed back at Maranello.
God, lots of discussions at Maranello then. Oh, it's going to be a long lunch for them. Couple of minutes still to go before we get the standing start procedure back up and running. This is how the grid will look. Verstappen will start on pole position in front of Lando Norris. Hamilton and Alonso will be third and fourth, with Lance Stroll rounding out the top 5. Russell, Perez, Sainz, Ocon and Tsunoda the top 10. Gasly, Bottas, Zhou, Sargent and Hülkenberg. We're still waiting for confirmation on Hülkenberg actually, but he's registered as 15th at the moment. And then Ricciardo is in his AlphaTauri and is getting ready to be sent out from his box. Let's hear from him.
Thank you guys for repairing the car.
Thank you to the team. Great effort from the AlphaTauri mechanics there to fix a lot of the rear wing of that AlphaTauri, which took a big hit from the wandering wheel carcass of Alex Albon's Williams. The other AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda with a fantastic start up into 10th from 16th on the grid, and off the back of a great sprint race result as well. In 6th is waiting patiently in the pit lane, and actually it's quite significant that Alex Albon's Williams, which hasn't really been performing this weekend so far, is out of this race, with Williams and AlphaTauri now in a heated battle for 7th in the Constructors' Championship. So Tsunoda will be hoping to get some more points in the bag for AlphaTauri as they continue their rapid rise towards the end of this season. They were plumb last in the Constructors. Okay then, Max Verstappen teeters out of the pit lane, followed by Lando Norris. The sun is shining down on Sao Paulo. A few whisper white clouds in the air. Air temperature 20.7 degrees. Track temperature 49.6 degrees. Guiding you through all the coverage is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is the multiple W Series race winner Alice Powell, and Jenny Gao is back in the box with us. Jenny, did you expect your sort of next race back in the box to be quite as chaotic a start?
Always. I'm surprised it didn't rain torrentially for this, but yeah, it's really nice to be back. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, don't thank me, it's an honour. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton up through the gears, weaving left, weaving right to get some heat into his tyres. Now, of course, under a red flag, you are allowed to change your tyres. You essentially get a free change if you so wish. So just waiting for my timing screen to update to see what exactly we've got and see if anybody has decided to get rid of anything or switch on. Sargent did start on a medium tyre. He switched on to the soft further back in the pack, and everybody else has stayed with the soft tyre. This is the sound of Daniel Ricciardo, who does make his way out of the pit lane, and he will restart this race, but from the pits. As Max Verstappen comes to a slow over the crest through turns 14 and 15. It's a short lap here in Sao Paulo, one of the shortest on the calendar, just over 4.3 kilometers, 2.6 miles, 15 turns, 5 to the right and 10 to the left. The 50th race held in Brazil, the 40th race at Interlagos. It has a bit of everything. It's an old school track. Overtaking is absolutely possible. On average, Sao Paulo and the Interlagos circuit sees the most overtaking of any other race on the calendar, as Verstappen does a final burnout as he makes his way and slots that Red Bull into pole position. Alongside him will be Lando Norris in the McLaren. It's switched around from the sprint, and it will be last on the grid, Sargent in 14th.
Lando Norris on the softs, but a new set of softs. That's his ammunition to try and get past Verstappen off this start.
Tension rising in the pit garages. The Red Bull mechanics watch on. Sargent in 14th. Hülkenberg will line up 15th. Piastri looks like he's able to restart this race as well from the pit lane. He will go along with his compatriot Daniel Ricciardo. The lights illuminate once more on the pit gantry. Max Verstappen on poles. We restart the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and it's a fairly even start from Verstappen, who cuts across to the inside, then teeters back to the racing line. It's Hamilton, though, going around the outside of Norris. Norris forces him to the edge through the centre S's. Norris holds on to second place. Hamilton in third, under pressure from Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, who is gaining down towards turn 4. Alonso moves to the inside on Hamilton, late on the brakes. Alonso through on Hamilton and manages to take third place away from the 7-time champion, who will try and fight back. This is the sound of Hamilton. He moves to the outside as they come into the fast right-hander of turn 6. No way through there. They'll have to settle for the time being. Stroll further back in the pack, and the other Aston Martin has a little look down the inside of Sergio Perez's Red Bull for 6th place, but a much cleaner start this time around as we resume the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Verstappen leads Norris, Alonso, Hamilton and Russell the top 5.
Lewis Hamilton, a real half-hearted effort there to defend from Fernando Alonso. I just didn't think he expected the closing speed as one of the Alpha Tauris, that's Yuki Tsunoda, gets very close to one of the, I think that is Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, who then snakes wide, does Tsunoda, run and then allows Pierre Gasly up through. So they're getting very close. There's more jostling as they're heading down the straight.
They're nearly
side by
3
side.
wide.
They are going into turn 1.
And just about Tsunoda fighting to stay in the top 10, but Ocon managed to get that position from Tsunoda. Ocon and the Alpine up to 10th, Tsunoda down to 11th and fighting hard to keep Hülkenberg behind him. Further up in the field, Verstappen still leads from Norris. The other Ferrari, the sole remaining Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, is currently in 8th, scrapping with Lance Stroll in front of him in 7th and Gasly behind him in 9th. Sainz desperately trying to make inroads and catch up to the front of the pack. The other Red Bull of Sergio Perez is in 6th, having fended off the demands of Lance Stroll on lap 1. He's now tucked up behind George Russell in front of him. In fact, they're all involved in this scrap, really, for Hamilton's 4th place, because Hamilton is 4th, then comes Russell in 5th, Perez is right there, so is Stroll, so is Sainz, and actually Gasly's Alpine isn't too far away. It's lap 5 of 71 of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Verstappen now has over a second on Lando Norris for the lead.
Yeah, DRS is now available, but Verstappen's done what he needed to do, break that bit of DRS. So 1.1 seconds is the gap as they're heading down now into turn 1. The sound you can hear is on board with Carlos Sainz as he chased down Stroll. Max Verstappen sets the fastest lap as one of the Alfa Romeos has a little look down the inside of Nico Hülkenberg. Wasn't quite close enough to really put on a challenge. Now, as we're watching them head down into turn 4, all the flaps pretty much open up, and George Russell has popped onto the radio and said, let's work together. I won't attack in these early laps. So he's right up actually behind Lewis Hamilton. And as I said, Lewis didn't really he sort of could have put in more effort to defend from Alonso there. I just didn't think he expected the speed of that Aston Martin down the straight.
I also wonder how much they're trying to protect their tyres. They knew yesterday in the sprint that their tyres just fell away. If they didn't work together, they can't attack later on in this stint.
As we take a look at the start replay, it was actually a really good start from Hamilton from 3rd, who managed to get almost side on round the outside of Norris, but then had to lock up, and that mistake then allowed Norris to force him out wide, which put Hamilton on the back foot and being chased by Alonso in the run down to turn 4. Alonso switched to the inside as Hamilton kind of covered the middle ground but didn't quite pick a side, did he? Left or right, and that allowed the gap for Alonso.
Yeah, he just stayed in the middle. Lando couldn't replicate that lightning start he got at the first start of the race here, as he just rolled off the brake to cover off Lewis Hamilton going into turn 1. However, Lando Norris now, hang on a second, turned up the width, fastest lap, 0.5 of a second behind Max Verstappen now, and guess what? That means he's within DRS.
Hello, Lando Norris. Where did that come from? Within a lap, he has closed that gap down to Verstappen at a rate of knots. Verstappen then, the gap is 0.7 of a second as they wind their way through the tight and twisty middle sector of this Interlagos circuit, peaking over the hills and then dropping back down through turns 11, and then you start to head back back uphill into the left-hander of turn 12. Jun Sao up through the left-hand kink of 13, which brings you back around again to the final corners, turn 14 and 15, which aren't really corners, you take them flat out, but DRS is activated. The rear wing of the McLaren opens. He tries to tuck into the slipstream of Verstappen, who is forced to defend, going down through the centre S's, but he manages to hold on. Can Norris set this up for a move for the lead? Coming into turn 4, we'll get the second dose of DRS now. Verstappen stays on the racing line and then moves to the inside to defend from Norris with DRS. Side on with Verstappen, can't make it work, has to tuck in behind the Dutchman, but Lando Norris is coming for Max Verstappen, who looks like he doesn't quite have the pace at this stage in the race. Is Verstappen managing? Is Norris pushing? We can't tell just yet, but Norris is certainly pushing for the lead in this race.
Yeah, I think Lando's got to do it now, because we saw how the DEG really affected them in the race yesterday. 24 laps, and he wasn't in a great condition were his tyres by the end of the race, and the gap has now stretched. It's over a second, so Max has really turned up the wick in this middle sector, and we'll have a look when they do cross the DRS detection line, which is on the exit of turn 13, which is a flat-out kink, and it's 1.2 seconds, so Lando has lost the DRS.
Well, Verstappen then now with a 1.2 second lead in front of Norris, Alonso, Hamilton and Russell the top 5, Perez, Stroll, Sainz, Gasly, Ocon the top 10, Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Joe, Sargent the top 15, then comes Piastri and Ricciardo, the 17 drivers left in this race. No Leclerc, no Magnussen and no Albon, and it certainly got tight for the lead of this race coming into turn 4 between Lando Norris in the McLaren and Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, who had the advantage. Norris with the DRS effect getting alongside, but not quick enough, and now Verstappen has started to pull away. Was that Verstappen just managing and Norris thinking, I've got to go all out attack here and try something, using up a bit too much of his tyre and then backing off?
No, it wasn't, because looking at the lap times, Lando was in the 1:14s actually. The 1:14.9 is the fastest lap of the race, which is 0.6 quicker than Max Verstappen, and now Lando's doing 1:16.7 was his last lap. So he's this happened yesterday, didn't he? He's now nearly 2 seconds behind Max Verstappen. He was there, getting closer, and we thought he's going to challenge here, and then all of a sudden he just dropped right off.
Just have a...
I'm having to push too hard in 11 and 12. I either overtake or it needs to manage more with it.
Russell saying he's pushing too hard in 11 and 12. He either needs to overtake or find a way of managing that and overtake. Well, he's half a second behind his teammate Lewis Hamilton. That is the battle for 4th and 5th. So Russell not happy then anymore to sit and wait behind Hamilton. Jenny.
You just have the feeling that Verstappen knows what his capabilities are, and it's like a cat with its prey, just reeling them in, playing around with them, flicking them up in the air, and then gobbling them up.
I thought we had a race on our hands at one stage there. I got excited. I think we all did, didn't we? Hey, let's not speak too soon. The other Red Bull is battling hard for 5th place at the moment. Sergio Perez is right on the rear wing of George Russell, but so is Lance Stroll. He's right in this battle as well with Carlos Sainz's Ferrari. It all actually is stacking up, Alice, behind Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Lando Norris is going to have his mirrors absolutely full very shortly of Fernando Alonso. The gap was 2.5 seconds. It's now down to 1.3 seconds with Alonso at least 0.4 a lap quicker, but the sound you can hear now is riding on board with Sergio Perez. DRS wide open as he charges down the back of Russell. He's going to get ever so closer, heading down into turn 1. Russell pulls over to the left-hand side to defend, covers it nicely, no way through just yet, but he's going to be under so much pressure now on the way down into turn 4, as again Perez will have the DRS.
Second dose of DRS, the rear wing flap opens for the drag reduction system, but Russell will also get it from Hamilton in front, which mitigates the effect of that drag reduction system. So they line astern through turn 4. Russell holds on to 5th, Perez in 6th, and this battle continues on. But there might have to be a call at some stage from the Mercedes pit wall as to what they do. Russell is not happy behind Hamilton. The gap between Hamilton and Alonso, who was in third, is just over 3 seconds at the moment. Alonso is closing in on Lando Norris in second. So this is a bit of traffic building up behind Hamilton, but a lock up front right for George Russell, feeling the pressure now from Perez behind as they make their way towards turn 12. Jung Sao heading uphill, taking a slight bit of curve from Russell. Here comes Sergio Perez. Can he get any kind of DRS coming round the final corner? The line comes, he gets it, and he's not close enough at the moment to try and reel him in. Coming into the centre S's is going to be a late move. If he tries it, he can't. Russell holds on for fifth for the time being. He'll get the second dose of it as they make their way through the exit of turn 2 and to the rundown of turn 4. Verstappen leads Norris, Alonso, Hamilton and Russell, the top 5. Perez, Stroll, Sainz, Gasly, Ocon, the top 6. No, the top 10, I should say, not top 6.
Yeah, we've got some close battles going on here as we are just witnessing a replay of Valtteri Bottas. He goes to the right-hand side as the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg pulls over to the left to defend, and a fairly job done, easy move for Valtteri Bottas as he sails around the outside into turn 1. But Pierre Gasly now is looking proper racy here, Harry and Jenny. He's all over the back of Carlos Sainz, who was obviously complaining on the radio about clutch issues, but I think he's maybe got a little bit more to the clutch issues at the moment. Seems to be struggling in that Ferrari, and he's tucked up as well behind Lance Stroll, as we're going to hear from Fernando Alonso.
Okay, Fernando, so we're still on plan A.
Copy, agree.
Plan A for Alonso, plan attack for Perez as he tries it down the inside into turn 1, and Russell can't find a way through once again. Can he get him on the straight towards turn 4? Not the best of exits for Perez, and the unfortunate thing for Checo is that Russell keeps getting the DRS effect from his teammate in front, which just allows him to keep that 5th place for the time being. We're starting to see once again what we saw in the sprint yesterday, a bit of a DRS train for, well, from everybody right now, from 4th backwards, because you look towards the mid-pack as well, and it is tight. 2 tenths between 10th and 11th. I think Tsunoda's actually just got up into 10th. He was behind Ocon for a while, so Tsunoda back in the points, but then Bottas is in close proximity to Ocon as well. That's further back in the pack, so we're seeing these trains start to develop as drivers are managing tyres and just stuck in this drag reduction system train.
Yeah, and Russell came over and said, right, we need to work together. But this is probably not what he was thinking about working together, but it's protecting him, really, having Hamilton there. But he probably feels that he's a little bit more racier than Lewis Hamilton there, as Logan Sargent continues to battle for 15th, 14th and 13th place as he's got DRS now, as actually Perez dives down the inside of George Russell into turn 1. Is he going to make it stick? Yes, he does, but George, of course, will have the benefit of DRS as they head down now into turn 4, Harry.
Right on the back of him is Russell now. He'll get the drag reduction system side by side. Perez tries to hold the inside line. Late on the brakes for Perez down the inside of turn 4. He gets the move done once again. Russell came back hard, but Perez gets in front of the Mercedes. Perez 5th, Russell 6th. Let's hear what Russell said.
Are we working together here, or are we just doing our own race?
We're still discussing.
And I think that discussion, which is Russell on the radio referring to, has taken too long for his liking, and they have now opened up Lewis Hamilton to attack from the other Red Bull.
Yeah, and actually that was a much racier move from Sergio Perez this time round. Yesterday in the sprint race, I just thought he looked a bit too cautious, you know. Moves were being made on him and he was attempting to make moves but didn't really have the gut behind to complete them or to defend. But certainly much racy now as he rolled off the brake going into turn 4, which gave Russell no chance to hang it round the outside. But yeah, George not particularly happy. He's sort of showing his nose back in
I thought Stroll was going to have a go.
Perez. No, Russell had it covered. He had it covered, but actually Stroll has tried to do a dummy there, and now he's going to put himself under a bit of pressure from Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, Sainz is closed up right behind him, but again they all get DRS. Perez, Russell, Stroll and Sainz. This is the sound of the Ferrari into the braking zone of turn 4, just after the 100-metre board, into the left-hander, chasing down Lance Stroll, the Canadian, in the Aston Martin. They have to kind of go single file through the middle sector of the lap unless somebody makes a slight mistake, but that was a sublime move that Perez tried down the inside of turn 1. It's been coming for a couple of laps, and finally he was able to make it stick and crucially get enough traction on the exit of turn 2 to withstand the DRS effect that George Russell would then get. Russell tried it didn't happen. Moves continuing for 7th. Stroll under pressure from Sainz now. Sainz tried it coming into turns 8 and 9. They'll make their way now down to turn 12 as they make their way back uphill to get to the closing part of the lap of this Interlagos circuit. The DRS will go the way of all of them. Stroll will get it, so will Sainz, and Sainz won't be able to try anything down into turn 1 unless it's very late on the brakes. Lap 16 of 71, Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Hamilton, Perez the top 5, Russell, Stroll, Sainz, Gasly, Tsunoda the top 10. Here's Russell.
So George, we need more management, turn 11 on throttle.
You want me to race or concede positions? You want more management? I'll go backwards.
We do need to make sure these tyres make it through this stint. We do want to race, but we want to make it through the stint.
So that's George Russell there, really upset. Well, say really upset. Frustrated is probably the best word to describe it. And you know what? I feel him, because it's not an easy job having to manage. And for example, turn 11 on throttle is the fast left-hand sweeper just before turn 12. So if you are going to try and manage the throttle there, that then puts you under pressure at turn 12, but that then allows the car behind to be even closer on the exit of 12 to get the DRS detection and then down the long main straight. So yeah, he's got a tough job on his hands there as George Russell.
Starting to see some action in the pit lane. We've already had Esteban Ocon pit from P14 in the Alpine. He's got onto the medium tyres, so it'll be interesting. Everyone's going to be watching how those medium tyres fare. Also pitting is Zhou in the Alfa Romeo. He's come back out in 13th place, also on mediums.
Thank you very much, Jenny Gao. Perez is hunting down Lewis Hamilton for 4th place. The Mexican has closed right up and will get DRS to the run to turn 4. Hamilton moves to the middle of the road. He doesn't need to defend too hard. Perez closes in, but isn't close enough to try a dummy or even a proper move down the inside. He holds firm for the time being. Further back in the pack, there's a little bit of action between Piastri and Ricciardo, the two that started from the pit lane on this restart, and Piastri making his way through. It wasn't Ricciardo, it was the Haas of Hulkenberg, my mistake. And that is the sound of Yuki Tsunoda getting onto the grass and making a little bit of a mistake as he loses the rear end. He manages to stop it spinning in a complete 360, but has to get out of the throttle back down to first gear, and that does allow a car through. So Tsunoda has still managed to keep on to 11th spot. So I think Bottas managed to get through in the Alfa Romeo there. So Tsunoda was in 10th.
I think they went into some kind of anti-stall there as well, because he had to pull the clutch in quite sharpish, but his hands were sideways, and that's not an easy thing to do, to pull in a clutch paddle, as Sergio Perez now dives down the inside of Lewis Hamilton. A very similar move to what he did on Lewis Hamilton's teammate George Russell, and that is complete. The crowd go wild, but he will be under pressure once again heading down into turn 4 as we wait for them to appear on the screen. Lewis Hamilton looks to the outside, but Perez has got that covered, and that is move complete. Or is it, because he runs slightly wide? Lewis Hamilton now will have a look on the run up into turn 6, braves it round the outside. No, he doesn't. Oh yes, he does. He's just going to run out of road in the end, and that is great stuff from these two great racers.
And that is exactly what Sergio Perez needs to be demonstrating in these last few races. He needs to keep it clean, he needs to keep it racy, and Perez gets the move done on Lewis Hamilton. Perez up to 4th, Hamilton down to 5th, and Hamilton just starting to lose a bit of grip, maybe the rear of that Mercedes Mercedes looked a little bit unsteady as he applied the throttle coming out of turn 8. But Perez now making that move stick, and he can set his sights on Fernando Alonso, but he's got 8 seconds to close down. Lap 19 of 71 for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Verstappen leads Norris, Alonso, Perez, Hamilton, the top 5, and he decides to come into the pits after being overtaken. That will shuffle him right back down as he hits the pit lane speed limiter and dives in to the markings outside his garage, hits his points. The mechanics go to work, all 4 wheels come off, and it's a set of the medium compounder tyre that is put onto that Mercedes within 2.7 seconds as he trundles to the end of the pit lane. His old teammate Valtteri Bottas also comes into the pits in the Alfa Romeo as Hamilton rejoins this race.
About 21 seconds is the average time they're looking at for coming into the pits, changing all 4 tyres and getting back out again.
Hamilton then will come out behind Hulkenberg and just in front of Ocon, who was one of the early pitters onto the medium compound of tyre. So Hamilton in 11th.
Let's pick up the pace, Lando, a little bit. Let's pick up. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Norris being told to pick up the pace. He responds with, I am.
The engineers are very polite today, aren't they? They're very good with their please and thank yous.
Well, Norris does have the fastest lap. 2.7 seconds back from Verstappen for the time being on lap 20. Perez will start to close in now on Alonso as quick as he can for 3rd. Russell is 5th. Stroll is still right there in 6th in a great battle with Sainz over that position as Russell is now told to come to the pits for a change of tyres. That will promote Stroll, Sainz and Gasly's having a good run in the Alpine up into 7th as it's Russell's turn now to be serviced by the Mercedes mechanic. The soft tyres come off, the mediums go on. It's slightly slower than Hamilton's stop, but just under 3 seconds. Where will he come out though? Hamilton will speed past as he drops down through the Senna S's. Hamilton will be able to carry greater speed round the turn 3 and on to the straight towards turn 4. So Hamilton still in front of Russell, who slots in just behind his teammate. They're now down in 10th and 11th.
Oh, great. What do you think that conversation's going to be like to the engineers?
Speak of.
Got a problem with my left front, it's starting to steer right. Okay, copy, we're looking at it.
So his left front is starting to steer right, Alice. That doesn't sound great.
So basically it's pulling right, it feels. So either the wheel's not attached properly, which hopefully for Lewis Hamilton's sake it is, or he's had a little of a knock of a curb, or the wheel is slightly unbalanced. Sergio Perez now is being told to box as he's peeled into the pit lane, but the sound you can hear now is on board with Carlos Sainz as he edges even closer still to the back of Lance Stroll in front. Perez, brand new set of medium tyres bolted onto the car. It's a nice clean stop from the Red Bull team there, 2.2 seconds, so faster than both Mercedes, as Lewis Hamilton has now got his mirrors full of George Russell. So I wonder what George is going to come on the radio next. I'm much faster, let me through. But if not, it continues his frustrating day, doesn't it, does George Russell?
Well, if Hamilton has got this problem and it persists, well, they will have to make that call eventually, won't they, the Mercedes team? But now they're split, the two Mercedes, because Perez has fed out just in between them. So Hamilton is 9th, Perez 10th, Russell is 11th. Now they've all pitted onto the medium compound of tyre. Verstappen leads this race from Norris, then comes Alonso, and then a great battle brewing still between Stroll, who is in 4th, and the sound of this man, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz, who last time he came through this corner, turn 12, Jung Sao, he took a bit too much curb on the inside, and he does so again, but I think he's struggling with rear grip as he just has to correct his steering wheel before he feathers the throttle up through the gears, up into 8th gear as they speed down the main straight. He'll get the effect of DRS. Stroll won't. Stroll is vulnerable. There isn't a car in front of him that is within 1 second. Stroll takes a bit of a tighter line down through the Senna S's, and then Sainz much wider, trying to get a better exit out of turn 2. Back on to the second DRS zone then. The rear wing flies open for Sainz, who moves to the inside. He's not close enough though. Stroll holds that position for the time being.
Interesting that Mercedes managed to jump with Hamilton, Perez. They were having that on-track battle, and actually Perez has come out behind Hamilton, and they're going to have to do it all over again.
I think we follow them. We should do a race. Don't worry about them. you've got the pace.
So they don't seem worried by that. Perez is now back behind Hamilton, but has, they believe, the superior pace. And Hamilton has reported a problem with his front right steering. So Perez is all over the back of Hamilton as they make their way down through turns 9 and then uphill into turn 10. And then it's a downhill braking, slightly cambered into a right-hand. Perez is sticking with him all the way, and they sweep round the next left-hander of turn 11, which brings you into the braking zone of Zheng Sao as Lance Stroll is told to pit. Can Perez line up Lewis Hamilton's 8th place as it currently stands on the main straight? The DRS line comes, the rear wing flap opens for Perez, who will tuck right up behind Hamilton, who holds the racing line, then moves to the inside as they come into turn 1. Perez is holding on round the outside, but just has to give way. He'll tuck back in and try and get better traction than Lewis Hamilton can, coming through the exit of turn 2, down towards turn 4. DRS once again for Perez. Hamilton aggressively moves to the inside to defend that line, but it's all for nothing because Perez sweeps round the outside through turn 4 and gets back in front of Hamilton. Perez now up into 7th, Hamilton in 8th.
Yeah, good job from Perez there. He did have a go into turn 1. And Zhou Guanyu is now on the radio being told to retire the car, so unsure what the issue is. We'll try and find out what is wrong with his Alfa Romeo as he's now being jacked up and wheeled into the garage. So that's day over for him, retiring on lap 22. Real disappointment for him, but just looking at Russell, he's really dropped off now at the back of the battle that we just had between Perez and Hamilton. The interval now is 2 seconds to Lewis Hamilton. So George is really not happy at the moment, is he, on any of these set of tyres. We started the race on the softs. He's now on the medium tyre, so he's not going to be a happy chappy, is he, come the end of this race at the moment?
And not for the first race either. I've been watching I've looked at Russell this year, and he just doesn't seem to be as happy in that car as he normally is. I don't know if it's gone away from him development-wise or if he's just not found a happy spot, but he's definitely lost that momentum that he had before.
I think Russell's had to manage a lot of issues over the last couple of races, and every time he has to manage an issue, he's then struggled to get the tyres back into a window that works for him. So at a track where he took his maiden win with Mercedes, it's not going his way as it currently stands, and Pirelli have been saying that medium compound of tyre hasn't been performing as expected so far this weekend, and that is the tyre he was on. He's now saying, and being told, we are going to plan B. And that's never really an encouraging sign, because you suppose you want to stick with plan A, right?
Well, exactly. Plan A is clearly not worked as Max Verstappen runs over a tiny bit of debris. Looks a bit of a twig or some sort, but all is fine. We now are riding on board with Lance Stroll. That's the sound you can hear, and he is charging down the back of George Russell, who actually moves off the racing line.
He doesn't even defend.
To let him through. He doesn't need to, does he? It's not his race. What's the point of losing time battling with Lance, who is on a much fresher tyre? Will sail on through. Seems to have a much quicker car as well. He's getting the benefit of the DRS, which will help him ever so slightly down into turn 4. But his Russell's battle now really is, of course, with his teammate. And then you've got behind Esteban Ocon, who, of course, his medium tyres are certainly much older. Russell, 5 laps old. Esteban Ocon's is 10 laps old, so half the distance between those two sets of tyres. As now, box, Alonso being told to come into the pits, and his gap is 6.3 seconds to Lando Norris. So I know I said he was sailing up quite nicely to the back of Lando. Clearly, that degradation has not done himself any favours as he rolls in nice and gently, stops nicely on his marks. Aston Martin pit crew get to work. Not a bad stop, 2.8 seconds. Could have been a bit better, but that's a brand new set of medium tyres that are now on that Aston Martin.
Alonso then feeds out through the pit lane exit, which sits parallel to the exit of turn 2, and then they merge together on the run down towards turn 4 as he feeds out Alonso behind Yuki Tsunoda, who is now in 5th. Alonso out in 6th in front of Perez, and Verstappen still leads this race on that 26, so we've surpassed the sprint race distance. He's got 3.7 seconds over the McLaren of Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz is now in 3rd, having not pitted yet, along with Gasly in 4th, Tsunoda in 5th, also not pitted. Alonso, Perez, Hamilton, Stroll and Russell the top 10.
Sainz is a country mile back from the top 2 though. I mean, if we thought this race was going to be interesting, I'm sorry to say Sainz hasn't stopped yet, and there's 20 seconds, 21 seconds, which is this pit stop gap, and that might be what Verstappen's waiting for that gap to extend just enough for him to pop in and pop out without any traffic.
Well, Sainz comes into the pits, so does Gasly, so do Tsunoda. 3rd, 4th and 5th in this race now come into the pits as Alonso streams by. How's Sainz's pit stop? It looks fairly quick. He's released into the path of Tsunoda, but they might just about get away with that. There was no major reaction from Tsunoda. It was a slow stop for Gasly, and Tsunoda, I don't think was too impeded by that, but what did you make of it, Alice?
That's an unsafe release. Look at me. He was in the path, he had to back right out of it, and we'll have to have a look at a replay, but those that were in place for the cars coming into the pits kind of had to shuffle out of the way so they didn't get run over by Carlos Sainz, so that will definitely get looked at. Be amazed if he does get away with it, but who knows these days, as Max Verstappen's been given the call to box, and he's in the pits, and same with Lando Norris.
Right, they've done their job on the track. It's now over to the mechanics in the pit lane. Blink and you'll miss it for Max Verstappen, who feeds out in 2.2 seconds. Norris then slides into his markings outside of his grid, and he is released again on a set of medium compound tyres. Slightly slower, 2.6 seconds, but clean pit stops for 1 and 2 in this race, and that is how they will feed out into this race as Verstappen holds on to the lead and Norris sets charge once again on to the back of that Red Bull. Alonso 3rd, Perez 4th, Stroll the top 5, Hamilton, Russell, Ocon, Sainz fed out in 9th, and Bottas currently at the top 10, as we're just getting another look then, Alice, at Sainz being released in the pit lane.
Yeah, his light was green, he followed instructions, but it was the Alpine crew that had to be careful as they were servicing Gasly's car. So yeah, what do you make of that, Jenny? I think that's an unsafe release to me.
For me, 100%. There isn't a fast and slow lane here. It's very old school in Brazil, Interlagos, so there isn't the waiver for them to come out and approach it together. And for me, you could see the pit crew were in danger, and that's an open and shut case.
Well,
for me,
there you have it.
FIA might be totally different.
That's the BBC F1 stewards. We'll see what the FIA stewards say. And race control, nothing's popped up on the timing screens yet, but we'll keep you abreast as and if that happens. Perez is rapidly closing in on the back of Fernando Alonso for 3rd place in this race. I think he gained almost a second in the last lap around. He's now 2.7 seconds off the back of Alonso. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton, who is currently in 6th and now has his teammate once again for company as they make their way onto the main straight. Russell closing on Hamilton with DRS. Russell, a tentative look to the inside, but not close enough. What's it going to be like out of the exit of turn 2 as they make their way down through the centre S's and feed out onto the next straight towards turn 4? Russell will get DRS. Will he try a late braking move? He's nowhere near close enough. Hamilton holds on to 6th, Russell 7th.
Yeah, Russell's going to be sitting here frustrated. So the last few laps, he has certainly picked up the pace compared to Lewis Hamilton. A few tenths faster than his teammate. So he'll be looking to try and make sure he gets a good exit. But actually, that onboard was from the back, looking out from the back of Lewis Hamilton's car to George Russell. And we saw Russell snaking over the road as his tyres desperately searched for grip, as the sound you can hear now is riding on board of Carlos Sainz as he lines up and easily overtakes, sails on through down the inside of Esteban Ocon.
What do you think going on in the pit wall with Toto Wolff looking at his Mercedes cars? They're not performing as they'd want. Hamilton in 6th, Russell in 7th. They're not working as a team, despite what Russell said at the beginning of this race. Do they pull team orders? What can they do to get the best out of this race?
I mean, what could they have done differently? They could have let George Russell through. He felt that maybe he had better pace than Lewis Hamilton. But then that would have essentially pulled Hamilton along a little bit better. So that could have been an option, but that was going to be very difficult to do because they always had that train of cars up behind them. So if they were going to swap them round, it was quite a risky thing to do. So, yeah, I feel for Mercedes, but of course Toto's not going to be happy, is he, seeing his cars sitting there in 6th and 7th. Carlos Sainz is going to be on the back of these very quickly. The gap is standing at 3 seconds at the moment. That's rapidly coming down. The only thing that could save him from that was, of course, if Sainz does happen to get a penalty for the unsafe release. Still no update on that as yet, but yeah, he's not going to be particularly happy. George does look the faster of the two because he obviously has sailed up to the back of Lewis Hamilton. So I expect maybe we're going to hear a radio call from George at any moment saying, right,
you're good at predicting them.
Let me through. Well, that's what I would be saying, to be fair.
Well, another lap around then. DRS once again opens for Russell, who will get the slipstream effect as well of his teammate Hamilton in front. This the battle for 6th and 7th, but they continue line astern, and while they fight, Sainz in the Ferrari is closing in, and that's significant in the battle for 2nd in the constructors between Mercedes and Ferrari. Mercedes currently have the advantage over Ferrari, and Mercedes maybe have the advantage in this race. 2 cars in it, only 1 car for Ferrari still in it, with Carlos Sainz after Charles Leclerc didn't even make it round the formation lap with suspected hydraulic issues. So Sainz will be keen to catch up to the back of Russell and Hamilton and dispatch them as quickly as he can and gain maximum points for his team and also for himself as well. He's rocketed up to 4th in the driver's standings, has Sainz, with his consistency and of course that race win back in Singapore just a couple of months ago. But Verstappen 5.5 seconds clear from Norris up front. Then comes Alonso. Perez now 1.9 seconds behind the Spaniard in 4th. Stroll rounds out the top 5. Hamilton, Russell 6th and 7th. Then comes Sainz. Ocon and Bottas are currently the top 10, and they are your point scorers. Then comes Gasly, Sargent, Tsunoda, Hülkenberg and Ricciardo, the top 15. Piastri is 16th and last in this race. We have lost Zhou Guanyu's Alfa Romeo, Kevin Magnussen's Haas, Charles Leclerc's Ferrari and Alex Albon's Williams. This is the sound of Pierre Gasly making his way down the main straight and making a nice clean move on Valtteri Bottas's Alfa Romeo. Gasly gets up into 9th, Bottas now down into 10th as Ocon, the other Alpine, comes into the pits.
Yeah, he does. Gap watch. Lando Norris 5.2 seconds now behind Max Verstappen. Alonso 6.6 seconds behind Lando. But Perez, he's edging himself ever so closer to the back of Fernando Alonso. Certainly setting better lap times. That last lap there, 0.3 quicker than Fernando Alonso. Both Red Bulls actually in the 1:15s. And actually Lance Stroll is setting better lap times than Fernando at the moment as well. But Perez is edging ever so closer, and also is Carlos Sainz. He is...
I haven't been on the radio because I thought it was quite obvious about the pace. Just sat there behind the Bottas.
That was George Russell, and while you were predicting a radio message, we thought it might have come sooner. He thought it was being obvious with what he was displaying. He is so much quicker than Hamilton, you can see it, he just can't quite get alongside. And Sainz is now well and truly in the picture in the Ferrari. He's just a second back from Russell now, and that gap has been closing over the last couple of laps. Mercedes need to do something here, Jenny, don't they?
Silence is not golden, it would seem. They've absolutely fallen into Sainz's hands. I mean, I don't know what more they have to do to make it very obvious, as George says, that he needs to get past, and now he's not. They're going to fall into DRS, and that's going to make it worse for both of them. The Ferrari will sail past both of these at this rate.
If they could have allowed Russell through, and even if Hamilton isn't as fast as Russell, kept within the DRS range to keep Hamilton with Russell as they catch up to the back of Stroll, and crucially then keep Sainz behind. That's my first thought, but then again, I'm not a strategist, I'm not on the pit wall, and maybe there's a reason for that. But as I'm watching this race, that is what I am thinking. This battle still rages on, no sign of any movement being done just yet. Sainz, though, is now within DRS of Russell as they make their way down the main straight. Russell has a little look into his left-hand side mirror as they close up under braking down through the centre S's. It's going to get close in the run down to turn 4. And lap 34 of 71. This is the sound of Carlos Sainz, who gets close in the braking zone into turn 4 of Russell, but isn't close enough. So Russell lives to fight another day. But now there is just half a second between them in the battle for 7th, and Hamilton just in front in 6th. This is the closest battle out on track at the moment. Verstappen still leads from Norris, then comes Alonso, Perez and Stroll having a great race up in the top 5. Hamilton's just been saying on the radio he's struggling with his tyres, and let's see if Mercedes can make a move with how they are managing their two drivers within the next couple of laps, because Sainz is all over the back of Russell in the Mercedes. Lap 35 of 71. Verstappen leads by 5 seconds to Britain's Lando Norris in a race that was red flagged after 3 laps due to a big crash. We've restarted it, but the big battle out on track right now is Lewis Hamilton fending off his teammate and the other Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Verstappen is away and well as it currently stands with a 5-second gap. Sainz then has made the move on Russell with the aid of DRS. The Ferrari through on the Mercedes as now Carlos Sainz sets his sights on Lewis Hamilton's 6th place.
Yeah, I wonder if George Russell can try and latch onto the back of Sainz to really help him through. But if Lewis is struggling on these tyres, Jenny, surely it is about time that they sort of swap them around. Obviously Carlos is in the mix now, so it's going to be a bit more difficult. Look, from a fan's point of view, I get we want to see battles, but I get why George is on the blower saying, hey guys, look, this is the 2nd or 3rd time in this race this has happened now. That's why I'm not coming on the radio to get you to let me through.
And Hamilton is struggling with his tyres. He's on the mediums. He's only done 16 laps on them. So why is he struggling? Is that front right that he said wasn't feeling right annoying him? Is that what's happening now? But Sainz within the next 2 laps is going to sail past Hamilton, and then once again it'll be Hamilton followed by Russell, only they'll both be further down. It's a strange way of running this race.
So this is the main story of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix as it currently stands on lap 36. It's battle over 6th place between Hamilton in the Mercedes, Sainz in the Ferrari and Russell in the other Mercedes. And Russell looks like he's had the pace on Hamilton but succumbed to the Ferrari of Sainz. Russell wanting his team to make a call so that he could get through on his teammate and perhaps catch up to 5th place man Lance Stroll. That call never came, and instead Russell paid the price as Sainz in the faster Ferrari made his way through, and he is now only 0.8 of a second behind Hamilton, and you can expect that move coming within the next lap or 2, and the 2 Mercedes will end up behind the sole Ferrari, and that has wide implications in the battle for 2nd place in the Constructors. Best of the rest, and that's pretty much whoever's 2nd to Red Bull in Formula 1 in 2023. Lap 31 of 71. Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Perez and Stroll as your top 5.
So what can happen with Hamilton now? Well, he could box, he could opt to do a 3-stop, which I'm guessing majority of these cars, unless you have got real heavy degradation, is not going to happen, as we see Carlos Sainz all over the back of Lewis Hamilton. Lewis actually defends the position, but Carlos Sainz braves round the outside. Actually, a very easy move in the end for Carlos as he went round the outside of there, and Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. Day goes from bad to worse, but they had heavy degradation, didn't they, in the sprint race yesterday, especially I would say with Lewis Hamilton. So surely it is sort of time for them to have a look at doing the 3-stop. Like I said, it's not going to be ideal, it's still an option, and I guess the only way that they can do it is if they haven't got some soft tyres that are have been really, really used. So we'll have to have a little look. But fastest laps now are being exchanged between the front two drivers. It was Lando Norris, and now Max Verstappen a lap later has just stolen that.
Hamilton did succumb to Sainz in the end. Sainz up into 6th, Hamilton now down into 7th, Russell into 8th, and Russell's now fallen a little bit back off of his teammate Hamilton. I wonder if that's almost not a protest, but he was trying hard to showcase his pace behind his teammate to let the call to switch positions come, and it never came. And will Mercedes regret that move as these laps start to play themselves out? Perez, further up in the field, is having a much better weekend of things. A man who is under immense pressure right now for that seat in his Red Bull to stay alongside Max Verstappen in 2024. He does have a contract, but we know what Red Bull are like with contracts, but he is 1.6 seconds behind Fernando Alonso as it currently stands and closing. Alonso much further behind Norris, who is about 11.7 seconds behind Norris. Still that 5-second gap between the top two. Verstappen leads. Jenny Gow.
When Perez came in, he said on the radio he thought they were following everyone else's race and not sticking to their own. I wonder if that's a reflection of what's happening out there at the moment. He's on 17-lap-old tyres. Alonso in front of him has much younger, well, several laps younger on 12, and I just wondered, did they stop Perez a bit too early to play out their ideal run plan?
Lots of questions, lots of talk of tyre and strategy in what is unfolding to be quite the crucial factors of this Sao Paulo Grand Prix. No weather playing a part, well, no wet weather playing a part as it did in Friday's qualifying. The sun is shining. The wispy white clouds that separate the blue skies that look over this Interlagos circuit, and the sun shining down on Esteban Ocon as he makes his way through on the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg for 13th. No points up for grabs for that position, but he'll be pleased to dispatch the Haas man as Hülkenberg goes down to 14th. Ricciardo and Piastri at the back of the field in 15th and 16th, having taken damage in that lap 1, turn 1 incident after Magnussen and Albon came together in quite spectacular fashion, and then those respective teams doing a great job at repairing Piastri and Ricciardo's cars in time for the restart, but because they repaired them in the garages, they had to restart the race from the pit lane, so we're on the back foot. But Piastri is just a couple of seconds back on the soft compounder tyre for Ricciardo, the man he replaced at that McLaren team. Lap 40 of 71. And where are the close gaps coming? Perez has been closing over the last 5 or 6 laps, but now seems to be a little bit stuck, as you were alluding to, Jenny, earlier on. 1.7 seconds the gap, 1.8. It's kind of stayed that way for the last couple of laps between himself and Fernando Alonso. Perez will be wanting a podium at the very least from this race. He hasn't been on the podium. Well, you've got to go all the way back to the Italian Grand Prix this season. So he had a good sprint, finished in P3, but he'll want the full podium come the end of the Grand Prix. News from Alfa Romeo, Jenny Gow.
Is that?
Oh, it's all right. They're retiring the car.
Oh, that's a shame. I thought it was going to be some interest and excitement, and I just looked down and I thought you were going to make the whole thing come alive on lap 41, but as you say, retiring the car for Valtteri Bottas.
Welcome back to the BBC F1 commentary box, Jenny.
I don't know. I've really enjoyed some of the races this year. There have been some blinders, and coming to Interlagos, we would expect for it to be another one. It's set Polster's racing for years, but actually this one, I can't even see where the excitement could come from. Obviously, it could come from our commentary and the superb job we're doing, but I don't know. I thought this would deliver more.
The sprints, for the amount of discussions we've had this weekend about the format and what we want from next year, was actually one of the more entertaining sprint races that we've had out of the 6 this year. So it is lap 41. Last time around, though, that is a retirement for Valtteri Bottas. It makes it a double retirement in this race for Alfa Romeo, and they join the likes of Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, Charles Leclerc's Ferrari, and Alex Albon in the Williams. Right, back up to the two Mercedes, who are now starting, it seems, Alice Powell, to fade in this race. Russell, who had pace, is now falling into the clutches of the Alpine of Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, it's George is he's going to be seeing this blue Alpine close up to the back of him, and that's just going to make him even more frustrated, as we do ride on board now with Pierre Gasly as he swoops through turn 11, jumps on the brakes through 12, a lot of them using a lot of inside curve really to hook the car around. Traction looks fairly good for Gasly, especially comparing that to the person in front of him, which is George Russell, as he's not quite within DRS, but he is now, but he's not getting the benefit of it because he was outside when he came onto the main straight and then through the detection zone, but he's made very good use of the toe. That gap's come down now to 8 seconds, so he will get the benefit of DRS heading down into turn 4. Let's see how much of a difference it does make. Not a great deal, down to 6/10 as they enter into turn 4 now. As Toto, he's well, I can't say that's a smile on his face.
Which one? Which
An
Toto?
upside down smile, I would say.
Which Toto? Of the Wolf variety. Watch it on. I was just going to say Gasly is looking for another point scoring result, because he's been on a good run of things actually in the last 6 races, looking for a 4th points paying position for Gasly. Of course, got promoted in Austin after those disqualifications for Leclerc and Hamilton, so finished 6th in the end. So at the moment looking at 9th, but staring wantingly at Russell's 8th spot, as Russell outs a bit of curve as they come uphill through Zhengzhou, turn 12, peak over the crest that brings you round the final corner. DRS line approaches for Russell, the rear wing slides open, the grandstands are full in Sao Paulo, and they get a great view of Gasly waving at Russell as he slides on by down through turns 1 and 2. Gasly up into 8th. Russell's day goes from bad to worst in 9th, and I wonder, Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri is not too far behind. Could Russell fall into the clutches of the Japanese driver and perhaps fall out of the points in this race? Still to play out, but Russell trying to fight back a bit on Gasly, but doesn't have the pace, and Gasly will now stream up the road towards Hamilton.
He will. He's on a set of medium tyres, is Gasly, that have 16 laps completed on him. George 23 mediums, Lewis Hamilton 24 on medium tyres as well, so he will eke down that gap, will Gasly, sitting there at 4.4 seconds. So George, I think George did actually really suffer a lot with the dirty air coming off the back of Lewis Hamilton's car, and eating away, should I say, at the tyres of George Russell, so he'll be very disappointed. But Perez now has actually lost ground compared to Fernando Alonso. He's now 2.5 seconds off, where actually it was 1.7 seconds several laps ago.
I think we're reaching the stage where people are going to start coming in for their pit stops. I wonder if Perez will be first.
Yeah, so we can extend a little bit, but yeah, use the pace you've got now, it's good.
That was Fernando Alonso's radio, being told to extend, use the pace that he has within that Aston Martin. Can he go faster? That gap has increased between Alonso and Perez, but Alonso's got to be wary of Perez coming in for an undercut here. Perez comes in first before Alonso, sticks on a fresh set of rubber and has the overall pace on the track. He could well overtake Alonso by the time the Spaniard comes in for his pit stop. That's how an undercut works, and this is the sound of Fernando Alonso up through the gears into the sunshine that greets you as you come on to the main straight, which isn't really even a straight. The pit lane entry to Alonso's left, he stays well to the right and starts another lap. Perez now 2.9 seconds behind as Alonso streams down through the gears and into the centre S's.
Nicely done there from Alonso, and he does look in control, must be said. The car's not doing anything too crazy, it looks fairly planted on the road, so he seems fairly calm, and he's actually setting similar lap times to Lando Norris there, as we hear from Gasly.
check the brake, problem with the brakes.
Copy, we're looking.
Gasly reporting problems with his brakes then. He's currently in 8th, Russell behind 1.4 seconds, but Tsunoda has closed in onto the back of Russell at a rate of knots. It was 3 seconds a couple of laps ago. It's now just over a second. The Japanese racer looking for another point scoring position. He got points in the sprint, hoping to follow that up with points in the Grand Prix to continue AlphaTauri's cause for 7th in the Constructors. That's where we're at with F1 in 2023 right now, as Verstappen surges away into the lead. He's wrapped up the title. Red Bull have already wrapped up the title. In fact, Verstappen, with scoring 25 points, will go with more than 500 points to his name at the top of the standings. Lock up for Russell. Here's his teammate.
It's gusty, but the car's so bad in the air.
That was Hamilton saying, wondering if it's gusty, have the winds picked up, but he's not happy in that Mercedes as Russell and the rear of that Mercedes squirms as he tries to get his foot down on the throttle. Is Russell going to come into the pits? Yes, he does. He streams in, and that allows Tsunoda to get ahead of him. Tsunoda moves up into 9th as Russell bails out of that one. He's had enough. The tyres have gone the distance, and it hasn't worked out for Russell in this strategy. What can Mercedes do now with Russell in this last stage of the race? They're going to fit a set of soft rubber to Russell. Slightly slow pit stop for Mercedes, 3 seconds as he feeds out. Ocon goes through, and he should feed out in front of Nico Hülkenberg. So Russell will slot into 11th spot in this race.
That was a used set of soft tyres as well that George Russell popped on there, so they're not going to feel great. He's still got a chunk to go in this race, lap 47 of 71. So he's going to have to defend really from, well, those that are going to stop again, because he will. Here's Lewis Hamilton.
Let's use the tyres now. I have been for the last 5 laps, dude.
Lewis Hamilton laughing in response to Bono there, as if he hasn't been using these tyres. Perez comes in. They're going to go for the undercut. They're going to try the undercut on Fernando Alonso. This is the battle for the final spot on the podium, and Perez sticks a set of soft tyres on that Red Bull, and Hamilton comes into the pits as well.
Yeah, that's a used set of softs that have gone onto Lewis Hamilton, a used set of softs that have gone onto Sergio Perez's car as well. They're both out into pit lane now, so let's have a little look where Lewis will slot in. Gasly has come into the pits as well, so he's complaining of a brake issue, but he's gone out now as I can see him going down the pit lane. Lewis Hamilton, he is coming through this very narrow pit exit, and he's going to actually end up behind Esteban Ocon, who is actually on a 3-stop strategy. So Esteban seems to be making this 3-stop work at the moment.
Well, I suppose it's been a bit of a tough weekend for Ocon, who had a big shunt in the sprint shootout with Fernando Alonso coming through the exit of turn 2, completely wrecking Ocon's car, but the team managing to do a great job of repairing that car in time to start the sprint race, and now enjoying a decent run of form for the Frenchman, who now gets up into 8th spot. But Hamilton is right behind him. This is the sound of Sergio Perez, who is just pitted the previous lap time around because Alonso has come into the pits for a 2.5 second stop. So Red Bull brought in Perez early doors to try the undercut. Perez streams past an AlphaTauri, who gladly gets out the way. Perez then into turn 1 as Alonso exits the pits, but it's a bit of a long run for Alonso to get out of the pits, and I wonder how close is this going to be between Alonso and Perez. I think Alonso's going to hold on to that 5th place now as it stands. Perez behind him. This is the sound of Hamilton making his way down the inside of Ocon. That's to get back up into 8th spot. Hamilton has just had a pit stop. Let's hear from him.
Should have gone to the hard tyre, man.
Hamilton saying they should have gone to the hards.
No, I don't think so. I think the hards, people have been saying the hards are just too slow and are prone to overheating, as I said earlier, due to the stiff construction, but he obviously felt that was a better option to do, but he sailed on past Esteban Ocon quite easily there with the benefit of DRS. Of course, Esteban put up no defence. It's not his race. His fight is not with Lewis Hamilton this afternoon. But yeah, Fernando Alonso, he stuck it there, didn't he? He's kept a nice, healthy gap, I would say, of 3.2 seconds from Sergio Perez. So The undercut was tried by Perez, and unfortunately for him, that didn't work.
Yeah, he's going to have to do it the old-fashioned way on the track if Perez wants what should become a net third position and the final rung on the podium. But that gap between Alonso and Perez is about 3 seconds. The two Alpine dicing on track, but Gasly gets past Ocon and sets the fastest lap while doing it. That looked like a fairly orchestrated manoeuvre on different strategies. Gasly now up into 9th, Ocon down into 10th. It's lap 50 of 71 for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Pit stops playing out at the moment. Verstappen leads by over 6 seconds to Norris, then Stroll, Sainz and Alonso the top 5. Perez, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Gasly and Ocon are the top 10. Russell, Sargent, Hülkenberg, Ricciardo, Piastri, the 15 drivers remaining in this race. And a race that got underway initially with Max Verstappen on pole. Charles Leclerc was supposed to start alongside him, but on the formation lap in his Ferrari, hydraulic issues seeing him spear off into the wall and unable to take part in the Grand Prix. We did get it underway, and Max Verstappen leading down into turns 1 and 2, but a huge shunt towards the rear of the field involving the Haas of Kevin Magnussen and the Williams of Alex Albon, also feeling the effects of that with the AlphaTauri of Daniel Ricciardo and the McLaren of Oscar Piastri, and it brought out a red flag after the end of 3 laps. Cars were fixed and repaired, and we got another start, and this time it was Verstappen on pole, but Lando Norris was alongside him after a brilliant start, and now 50 laps into this 71 lap race, he is 7.2 seconds behind in a race that is being dictated by strategy and tyre wear, and those that are suffering the most at the moment, it seems, are the 2 Mercedes. Russell's fallen down to 11th as it currently stands. Hamilton is engaged in a great battle with Gasly. Gasly's just got through on Hamilton on the main straight. Hamilton tries to fight back down towards turn 4, but isn't as quick as the Alpine, who now skates off into the distance, but Hamilton still lurks behind over 8th and 9th.
Yeah, Gasly and the Alpine going really great guns. He's just at the fastest lap as well. It was Max Verstappen. He and Lando Norris traded it for a while. They'll probably try and claim it back once they've done their pit stops, but Ocon doing well.
I mean, it's DRS. Still not catching him. Yep, understood, Lewis.
A rather resigned Hamilton there, saying he's still within the DRS of Pierre Gasly in front, but he's just not able to close. And the DRS, the drag reduction system, the rear wing opens at the allocated points on this track when you're within a second of the car in front, gives you a couple of kph's extra speed down the straight, and he's still not able to close in, and that's Gasly not having DRS. So not good news for Hamilton or Mercedes, abundantly.
No, I would say that's probably one way to put it. And actually, Esteban Ocon is sort of hanging around there still. He's doing 1:16.5. Lewis Hamilton, is doing a 1:15.9. And Esteban Ocon is on 19-lap old softs, whereas Hamilton's on 4-lap old softs. So the Alpine seems to be dealing with it a little bit better with its tyre degradation, and that's what's let Mercedes down sort of heavily. Obviously, that's not the only thing, but one of the main things that have let them down today is this tyre degradation, and that's, you could say we expected that, because we saw that in the sprint race yesterday as Carlos Sainz is being told to box. He's currently in P4, 4.9 seconds behind Lance Stroll, medium set of tyres, but of course Alonso and Perez have boxed already, so he'll slide a little bit further down the order as he comes in, parks quite nicely on his marks. The Ferrari team get to work, a slight slow stop on the rear right there, sparks flying from the gun, but it was still 2.8 seconds, but from our point of view it looked like it could have been even quicker, because those tyres on the front and on the rear left were put on fairly quickly. It was just that rear right that was a little bit too slow.
Sainz then, a man who has achieved his maiden podium at this very racetrack, courtesy of Lewis Hamilton getting a penalty, and a man who also got up into 4th in the Drivers' Championship over the last race. So Sainz looking to extend and get some more points for him and his team, the Ferrari squad. So it was a quick stop. He is now chasing down Tsunoda in front, and it really was sparks flying on the rear right of Carlos Sainz's soft tyre as it was put on by the Ferrari mechanics.
They've actually got a light on their guns, so that usually tells them when the tyres are on. So obviously it's a green light when the tyre is on, but it just looked like the mechanic didn't quite get the gun on properly. But back to the action, Jenny, and Perez is really catching up now with Fernando Alonso. They gap 1.2 seconds.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to be a good fight. Stroll's had a slow pit stop as well, 4.3 seconds. He was on horrid old tyres, and they thought that they could do something sensible there, but actually it's slowed him down so much he might have dropped a place.
That's a shame for Stroll. He'll feed out. I think maybe Sainz might get him, but we'll see where he feeds out. He's having a good run of things at the moment, but he does come out in front of Sainz, who's just a couple of seconds behind. The battle is brewing between Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin and Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, and this the battle for the final spot on the podium. It's been coming and coming over the last few laps, and Perez is well and truly within striking distance, but he's not just trying to make a move on any driver in this field. It's Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, whilst his teammate Lance Stroll has a slow pit stop, 4.3 seconds it was, and we might be able to see the reason why. The front tyres were changed. He was held for quite a long time. I think the front right might have been a little bit slow on. Another lap around, Perez closing and closing. He's not quite within DRS range at the moment. It was only 7 thousandths of a second out come the DRS detection point. Will he get it next time around? The sun shines down on that Red Bull car. He gets the DRS in the run down to turn 4, but he's not near enough this time around.
2 laps ago, Fernando was doing 1:15.3. His last lap, a 1:14.7. So maybe he was just nursing his tyres ever so slightly, but he needs to obviously, I don't need to give him advice, he knows what he's doing. He needs to make sure that he keeps Perez out of DRS, and actually he's doing a fairly good job of it at the moment. Perez is hanging around that 1 second mark. He dips in ever so slightly as they come into turn 4 to 9/10, but Alonso has really gained a lot of pace, and actually Sergio Perez is doing the same pace as him, which is what his pace was when he was catching up to the back of him. So let's have a look now as they exit turn 13. DRS detection is between 13 and 14. Gap is at 1 second, and Perez doesn't get DRS. So Alonso, he knows what he's doing. He's turned up the wick at the right point here and is getting those exits out of where he needs to most.
He just slid out of detection, did Perez, in the run-up through turn 12 and Jun Sao. This is the sound with Checo Perez in the Red Bull up through the gears. He does get DRS in the run down to turn 4, but he's not close enough. He needs the DRS in the run down to turn 1 to get close to Alonso and then get the traction out of 2 and try and make the move into 4. That's what we've been seeing. That's the main overtaking point in this race, and Perez is able to stick with Alonso through the tricky middle sector and closes right up to the back of the Spaniard coming through turns 3, 4 and 5. Then the 6 and 7. Then you approach uphill through the right-hander of turn 10. Alonso takes a much wider line. Perez much tighter, nearer to the apex. The left-hander of 11 as you try and time your braking point to precision for Jung Sao. Turn 12. Alonso again much wider with his entry. Perez hugging the apex, taking a lot more curve up over the hill of 13 and 14. He will get DRS this time around. The pit lane entry to your left. Can he close up enough to try and make a move on Alonso on lap 56 of 71 of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix? He's as close as he's ever been to the back of the Aston Martin, but Alonso is so good coming through the exit of turn 2. Perez will need everything he can get. The DRS wing slides open on the Red Bull. Alonso doesn't get it, but Perez slams it shut as he hits the brakes to stay behind Alonso, who is still 3rd. Perez 4th, Stroll 5th, Gasly 6th, Sainz 6th, Gasly 7th. Then comes Hamilton in 8th, Tsunoda, who has just pitted, so he'll slide down the order. Russell gets through up into 9th. Tsunoda should come out in 10th spot in front of the Ocon and Alpine, and with 15 laps to go, our leader has come into the pits. Max Verstappen puts on a soft set of tyres.
Yeah, it does. 2.5 was the stop there. Perez 7/10 behind Alonso now, but Alonso's being very clever. As I said, he needs to get his exits out of the final corner, but he's gone ever so slightly wide. But Perez was then a bit too eager on the way in, but this is closer than he's ever been really heading onto this main straight, Harry. 8/10 is the gap. DRS open wide for Perez, and Alonso sits there, keeps himself on the racing line. No need to move to defend. Perez is not close enough, and actually the Aston Martin's pretty handy down the straight there compared to the Red Bull, certainly Perez's Red Bull and Alonso's Aston Martin as we're seeing them at the moment. But he just needs to try and make sure that he gets those exits, keeps it nice and tidy. And of course, this is Fernando Alonso that we are talking about. Very experienced and probably one of the best drivers that we will get on this Formula One grid, and he's certainly doing that at the moment.
Norris stays out. He now leads this race. 11.8 seconds the gap between himself and Verstappen. I'll tell you what, a safety car would change things now, wouldn't it? That would certainly prove for a spicy end towards this race. This is the sound of Perez still closing on Alonso. But as Alonso's taking much wider lines in general through the corners, whereas Perez is so much tighter and closer to the apex. Why would Alonso be going wider through the corners?
So he did this yesterday when his tyres started to get a lot of degradation on them in the sprint race. He sort of squared the corners off, so got the car rotated so he could get on the gas, on the throttle nice and cleanly, and reduce the steering lock on the exit as much as possible. And that's what he's doing now, just making sure that he's squaring off the corners. He does it nice and tidy there through this first section of track, because that's what he needs. He needs to try and make sure that he maximises that power beneath him, that run down the straight. And George Russell, well, we thought his day was bad, but it now has got even worse, as he's being told he needs to retire the car, sitting there in 9th place at the moment. We'll try and find out as soon as we can what the issue is there, but that really is not ideal for Mercedes, which probably has to be one of their worst race weekends of the year so far.
Oh, it certainly does. And Hamilton is now, Tsunoda's about 13 seconds behind him, but Tsunoda on some decent rubber, I think, Jenny, on the softs.
Yeah, high engine temperature being reported, risk of imminent failure. So Russell pits out from 12th, and he'll have some words to say to the team, and they'll have some words to say to him. And I expect the debrief tomorrow will be interesting. It's been woeful. And I think they'll say that as well. I don't think I'm putting words into anyone's mouth. I think they're disappointed.
Oh, Perez is much, much closer to Alonso coming into turn one, closes up under braking, but we've seen this before, and are we going to see it again? Alonso is just superb through the corners. Perez trying for all his might to get back onto the podium for the first time since the Italian Grand Prix several rounds ago. He closes up into turn four, but Alonso reigns supreme and keeps Perez behind as we're on lap 59 of 71. Norris leads 8.6 seconds the gap between himself and Max Verstappen, who came into the pits a couple of laps ago. Alonso is third, then comes Perez and Stroll, the top five, as Norris is just told to pit as well. Sainz is sixth in front of Gasly. Hamilton is eighth, Tsunoda ninth, Ocon the top 10. There are your point scorers. Then comes Sargent, Hulkenberg, Ricciardo and Piastri, the 14 drivers left in this race. We are losing them at a rate of knots as Norris comes in. Nice clean stop as he gets a little bit of wheel spin at the exit of his pit box. 2.5 seconds.
Well, it was nice to have a different race leader for at least a couple of laps.
It certainly was.
Spoiled there, weren't we?
Yeah.
And Norris then will feed out. Verstappen has already gone through, and I think we'll get a bit of from the Haas, but nearly contact going into turn one between Perez and Alonso. Front left of Perez going into the side pod of the Aston Martin, just about avoiding any calamity there. But Perez, I'm sensing frustration from the Mexican in the dying stages of this Sao Paulo Grand Prix. He's been on the back of that Aston Martin for over 10 laps. It's his main race race this weekend, and Alonso is just holding on to that third, placing that Aston Martin in all the right places, and Perez cannot find a way through. He can get as close as he might, but he can't overtake.
That was risky from Perez, who just needs to get good results. Do you think he needs to be third? I think the result would be better if he just brings the car home. Don't do anything silly. Don't try and tackle Alonso and wipe your car out.
Well, this is Perez we're talking about, right? Remember Mexico? What happened there going into turn one?
Has he not learned anything?
Well, probably not.
I'll put him on a naughty step.
He's 7 tenths now behind as they come on to the main straight. DRS wide open. He's inches ever so closer. He tries to send the dummy on Fernando Alonso, but he's experienced. He's a wily old fox, is Fernando. He knows that he's only trying to make me force him into mistake, as they head down now into turn 4. Gap a little bit wider than it was last time round, so he's pretty safe heading down there now. But yeah, Perez, we know what can happen when he gets frustrated sometimes, but I think actually Perez has driven a pretty good race, seeing that he started fairly well down the order. Okay, it was 8th if you take out Charles Leclerc, who didn't start this race due to a hydraulic failure. But he's made some very good moves. He's made some tough moves. He's made them stick. He's pulled them off, and his pace has actually been not too bad compared to his teammate. Fastest lap from Sergio Perez, a 14.1. Max Verstappen, a 14.0. So pace is fairly similar. Okay, the gap is fairly large, but he has had to filter through traffic. He had to clear those two Mercedes, didn't he? But as they come on now to the main straight, Harry, the gap's still similar again, 8 tenths of a second.
It's the closest gap in the entire field. And Perez then, once again with DRS, streams into turn 1, but cannot find a way through. Out through the centre S's as it then starts to cave to the left-hander. That brings you out of 2. DRS activated in the rundown to turn 4. This is the sound of the Red Bull, but he just has to brake. It's the straight is just not long enough for Perez to try and get alongside Alonso as he peels off a bit of visor. What do you call that?
Tear off.
That's it, yeah. A bit of tear off.
No, don't pull the visor off.
Pull the visor off. Bit of tear off comes out of the way for Perez, but he's still hunting down Alonso. Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Perez, Stroll, the top 5.
Alice, I just wanted to ask, how many laps can you keep this kind of intensity? How many laps will that car and the tyres let you be involved in this sort of battle?
Get into a rhythm. That's the thing. Perez will try and eke out the weaknesses from Alonso and his Aston Martin, but obviously the main opportunities he's going to get was heading down into turn 1, which is where they are now. Gap still 8 tenths, so Alonso nailing that every single lap, that gap there. And then down into turn 4 will be the next overtaking opportunity as well. But Alonso will just be focusing on keeping a rhythm, and actually he really seems to be doing that so well, with lap times within either side 2 tenths of a second one way or the other. And then obviously Sergio Perez, as I said, just needs to try and force him into mistake. But as I keep saying, this is Fernando Alonso, and we know how good he is at keeping consistent as the crowd are waving. But this man, Lando Norris, he has just set fastest lap of the race, a 1:12.4, and I have to double take that, wondering if that was correct. But according to the timing screen, that's the time.
That's some acceleration, isn't it, from the pace that's been out there and present all round?
It certainly is. Well, Norris and McLaren once again displaying how good they are over one lap. No one is good compared to Max Verstappen, and he would get the extra point for the fastest lap if he can hold on to it by the end of this race, and that would see him go up into 5th in the Drivers' Championship. And Alonso, if he can get hold on to his podium, it will be I think that's an 8th podium of the year if he can hold on to it. His first since the Dutch Grand Prix just after the summer break, if you can remember that far back. So that's where Aston Martin's decline really began, and the upgrade race they started to lose very much. This is the sound once again of Perez. Still can't find a way through on Alonso, who is holding on firmly for that third place.
Talking to the engineers at Aston Martin, they've openly said to us that they've used the last couple of races as an open testing session, just because they've bought those upgrades to Austin and they needed to work through them. So they've done some things on track that they wouldn't normally do, but testing is at a premium. So they've done them on track and they've tried their hardest to get the updates for next year's car and to get them in the right direction for this year's car. So they're doing something a bit different, but hopefully this is the turning point and they'll have better results for the last 3 races.
Perez once again cruising up to the back of Alonso with DRS, but will it come before the end of this Grand Prix? It's lap 65 of 71, closes up under braking and follows Alonso down through the Senna S's. Alonso looking to get back onto the podium for the first time since the Dutch Grand Prix. Perez looking to get back onto the podium for the first time since the Italian Grand Prix. 2 drivers fighting it hard, and unfortunately Perez just not able to utilise any errors that Fernando Alonso may or may not make, and Alonso doesn't really make errors, so he's got to force him into one if he can. Has he got to, Alice, just try a dummy, or do you think actually the state of Perez's career right now, it would be better just to show aggression but not try anything too risky that would lose him 4th place?
I don't think a dummy's gonna work. He's not getting close enough to really sell him a dummy or challenge in any way like that. By
dummy, I mean steaming down the inside regardless.
Yeah, not giving him an actual dummy. But no, I have to say this is a really great drive from Alonso. You know, he's keeping behind a Red Bull, who's clearly, it's the best car by far on the grid, and he's doing a very solid job, and he fully deserves this 3rd place podium if he gets it. Still 5 laps remaining of this race, but Perez has also, as I touched on earlier, done a good job as well. Lance Stroll is 10 seconds behind this gap. The gap is coming down actually between Norris and Verstappen, but that sits at 8.5 seconds now, and actually Max Verstappen's just set a personal best lap of the race, albeit it still is 4/10 slower than Lando Norris, so the gap's coming down, but unfortunately for Lando, not enough laps left in this race.
We are watching Alonso at his absolute best, aren't we? Keeping a faster car behind him, working out where on track he can maintain that advantage. The Aston Martin fans in the grandstands are cheering. 5 laps to go. This is premium Alonso, Jenny.
It really is, and as you say, the fans are willing him on. There are a lot of Alonso fans around the world, a lot of Aston Martin fans around the world, but equally Perez keeps on hounding him. Can he just keep it for the last laps of this race, or can Perez steal it off him? He'll want to, but how much is he willing to risk for 3rd place? Easy for me to say.
Alonso has a quick glance in his left wing mirror to see where Perez is as they plunge down through the Senna S's. And once again, the battle down to turn 4. Alonso in front of Perez, who has DRS. It's slam shut under braking. He gets close, half a second, but close but no cigar once more for Perez. Stroll is in 5th, Sainz is in 6th, and all the gaps are kind of stable, if I'm honest. Gasly is 7th, Hamilton is managing to hold firm and set steady pace in 8th. Tsunoda is slowly closing. It was 13 seconds the gap, it's now just under 10 seconds, but I think Tsunoda will run out of laps to try and get on the back of Hamilton. Ocon rounds out the top 10 as it currently stands. A good point at the moment for Alpine and AlphaTauri further back in the pack. Logan Sargent has had a fairly quiet run up into 11th, 1 spot outside the points. Hulkenberg is 12th in the Haas. Ricciardo, after being a victim of damage in the turn 1 lap 1 incident between Albon and Magnussen and restarting this race from the pit lane, is down in 13th. The same fate was for Oscar Piastri, his compatriot in the other McLaren, who is down in 4th. 14th place, and both of those drivers having a bit of a lonely race, really. Lap 68 of 71 of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Easy to forget, it's Max Verstappen who leads by 8.2 seconds.
It is, and it's actually a nice circuit where Fernando will have really good memories, because he actually clinched both of his world championships at this track many moons ago, 2005 and 2006.
Oh, some stats there, Alice Powell.
And he's finished on the podium 8 times here as well, so be adding another one of those, wrapping up his 9th podium at this circuit. But Max Verstappen, I mean, you have to count him, would you say, as driver of the day, as one of those entered into the ring? Because he just seems to he just does it week in, week out. People say, yeah, well, he's got the best car by far, you know, it's just one of the best F1 cars we've ever seen. But he's still got to do the job, you know, he's still got to get it off the line, which, as I've said, it's not the easiest thing to do, is getting any race car off the line. And then he's controlled it nicely. He's managed his tyres very nicely. Okay, he's not really come under a great deal of pressure. We had that one lap wonder from Lando Norris. He got ever so close and got all our hopes up. But I would say it's a solid job from him as well.
I would say, who's done something that's unexpected? Verstappen's done exactly as you would expect him. He's been amazing, brilliant. He always is. Sainz?
I have no downshift. Like left panel is not responding.
Carlos Sainz reporting on the radio, I have no downshifts, as if the left paddle was not responding. So when he wants to downshift, Alice, it's just he's not getting anything on the dash.
Well, no, he's probably getting it on the dash, and it's just stuck in a gear. So for some reason, the gearbox is deciding, or the paddle is not responding to his instruction. All electronics, of course, trying to so much you can control on the steering wheel, but that is one of the most important things, is being able to change down gear. So if he's stuck in top gear, which is 8th gear on these race cars, then that's not going to help at all. But Sergio Perez now 0.5 of a second behind Fernando Alonso, who's been doing such a great job to fend off this Red Bull, Harry. But is that about to come to an end?
Well, he's closer than he has been over the last couple of laps. Alonso has to defend. Perez steams down the inside into turn 1. Perez gets the job done. But Alonso, can he fight back out of turn 2? Alonso, who has been sublime over the last 10 laps in keeping that Red Bull behind, he'll now get the DRS. Perez moves to the inside. Alonso tries the dummy. Sparks fly. Perez holds the position. Perez in 3rd, Alonso in 4th, but steaming out of turn 5. Alonso going to try around the outside into turn 6, takes a wider line, only one route through there. Perez puts that Red Bull in exactly the right place to keep Alonso behind. Perez, finally, he bided his time, and on the penultimate lap, managed to make the move stick up into 3rd. Alonso in 4th. Now, will he be able to pull away, or can Alonso stick with him as they make their way through the left-hander of turn 11, back into the braking zone of turn 12 as you head uphill through Zhengsao. It's a short lap here, one of the shortest on the calendar. Up through the gears, a slight change to the steering wheel settings for Fernando Alonso. The DRS line comes, the rear wing flap flies open. Perez won't get it this time, there's no one in front of him. Perez into turn 1, takes a tighter line. Alonso a wider line, carrying more speed and momentum out through turn 2. The left-hander brings you back on to the straight towards turn 4. DRS open. Alonso moves to the left, but Perez covers him. Alonso gets back through on Perez. Perez tries the outside. There's nearly contact. Alonso back through on Perez. Alonso up into 3rd. Perez down to 4th. What sensational racing for the final podium position. But Superius up front once again. It's Max Verstappen, the Dutchman, the champion, who takes the checkered flag and wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. He takes his 52nd career win and goes above Alain Prost in the all-time list. Lando Norris comes home in 2nd for McLaren, but who is going to get the final stop on the podium into turn 12? Alonso's wide. Perez tries down the inside. It's no good. Alonso's going to seal the deal unless it can be to the line. Perez gets the DRS. It's too late. Alonso crosses the line. a whisker, gets third place and the final rung on the podium. Alonso third, Perez fourth, Stroll the top 5.
Wow, 1/10 between, actually probably less than 1/10 between, and then that you can hear is the sound of the Aston Martin crew. Alonso, take a bow. He set that up perfectly. Going down into turn 1, he forced Perez to defend. Perez did defend. He took the carrot. He defended. Alonso set it up so nicely. Got the perfect line round turn 1. Got through the DRS detection, right up the back of Sergio Perez into turn 2. And he knew exactly what to do, and he dangled that carrot there. Perez went, yep, I'll snap that up. And then it was then going to be a sitting duck going down that straight into turn 4. Lovely, lovely stuff from Fernando Alonso, and fully deserves that podium. I thought I may have jinxed it, but let's hear from your race winner.
Well done, Max. Fantastic job. Yet again, mate. Well done.
Well done, Max. That was absolutely clinical once again. Well done. Another Brazilian victory.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was, I think, a very good performance. Very nice, good race, well executed, good pit stops.
Simply lovely from Max Verstappen. Lando Norris in second, Alonso third, Perez a close fourth. My oh my, was that fantastic. Stroll 5th, Sainz 6th, Gasly in 7th, Hamilton in 8th, Tsunoda 9th, Ocon 10th, and last of the point scorers, Sargent, Hülkenberg, Ricciardo and Piastri, the 14 drivers in this race that finished this race. We lost Russell, Bottas, Zhou, Leclerc, Magnussen and Albon in a race that had to be restarted after 3 laps due to a collision between the Williams and the Haas. But we got there in the end. 71 laps complete, and Max Verstappen pulls up into Parc Fermé as he takes yet another win of the season, his 17th win, Jenny.
It was really impressive from Max Verstappen, but talk about leave it until the last lap, the last minute, the last second. That was incredible from Alonso and Perez. How they were able to be so meticulous, so prescribed with it. So that's Verstappen going into his engineers and crew. Another happy day for Red Bull.
Half a tenth between Alonso and Perez on the line on the final lap. It doesn't get, well, it can get closer than that, but it doesn't really get closer than that. Alonso, I think, will take a lot of satisfaction from that. Back on the podium for the first time since the Dutch Grand Prix. He clambers out of that Aston Martin as Lando Norris, who finished a well-deserved second, manages to celebrate with his team and makes his way over to be weighed. He did manage to hold on to the fastest lap of the race as well, and a celebration there with Verstappen. Alonso being told by his mechanics, a world champion drive, and it absolutely was. That was peak Fernando Alonso.
And absolutely what Aston Martin needed at this time. They needed a boost, and that's what they got.
It absolutely is. They get a good chunk of points from that. And I think a word to be said, not as fast as his teammate, but Lance Stroll, a top 5 finish, was what he needed as well, I think, to regain some confidence for the Canadian. Finished 7th in the Austin Grand Prix, and then here getting a top 5 performance for the Canadian. So a good job from the Aston Martin team. But the best result going to Max Verstappen, who now goes ahead of Alain Prost on the all-time list of most wins in Formula 1. He now has 52 to his name. Next up, Sebastian Vettel on 53. As Verstappen stands tall on his Red Bull, one of the most successful cars in Formula 1 history, and will go down as one of the most revered. That RB19. And Max Verstappen, what an image. It's like nothing we've ever really seen before in a season. We've had domination seasons, of course we have before, but this is something very different, I think, Alice.
It is, and it's an image that we see most weekends, don't we? Max standing on top of the car, waving to the team, waving to the crowd, as the crowd now flood onto the circuit, all running to try and get the best position, should I say, of the podium. and catch a glimpse of the drivers who line up in the pit lane. Obviously the top 3, they go on the boards, 1, 2, 3 that are laid out just outside the weighing scales, but the rest will have to queue. So some of the fans are jumping and hanging off the fence there, Jenny, to just try and get a glimpse of Sonoda and co, who are still climbing out of their cars as they're queuing in the pit lane.
It's a wonderful atmosphere, and Interlagos, all the fans, as you say, rush on. They all want a piece of the action just to see their stars, the people that they admire and follow around the world for some people. And I think this is a really happy podium as well. If you look at Verstappen, obviously, with his 17th win, then Norris, then Alonso. There's no complaints amongst those. They've all driven a very good race out there, and it wasn't the most scintillating for us, and it probably wasn't the most scintillating for them, apart from Alonso.
Well, we'll be able to hear from our top 3 drivers with
another
Webber.
victory, the 17th victory of the year. It was relatively straightforward, built off a beautiful qualifying session, which was tricky. Got the pole with that on Friday. Run us through your afternoon, mate.
Yeah, I think the starts were very important today. Both of them were, I think, very good. And after that, the whole race was about the management of the tires. I think we were good on any tire, but I think especially that middle stint we could create a bit of a gap. And I thought that was very strong there.
It must have been quite lonely at times, though, mate. It's a long old race here. It's 71 laps. Did you any mice in the machine? Your mind start to drift on other topics, or you managed to keep it all together?
It all looked quite good, but with the high deck around here, you were constantly correcting the cars, so your focus always needed to be there. But luckily it worked out great today.
So a few weeks off now, mate. Vegas, you must be looking forward to that one. First time there, street racing at night.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
very
incredible.
different to this one. I mean, a lot colder. Let's see what the track grip will do, street circuit. New for everyone, and I think it will be full of surprises for sure.
Congratulations, mate. Another victory. Well done. Lando Norris, another podium, mate. Another podium. Well done.
Thank you.
Yourself and McLaren absolutely on fire. You executed that beautifully. The starts were, it was tricky. Obviously, there was 2 different starts. Run us through your afternoon, mate. How do you feel it went?
Very good. Couldn't have gone much better, to be honest. Good pace, similar to yesterday, which is the main thing, and a much better start in the beginning to get from 6th to 2nd.
Yeah, there it is.
Which was a nice surprise, but my start yesterday was not so good, so I tried to work on it, and it got better. But then the second start, I was just a little bit aggressive on it. So still happy. P2 is as good as we can get nowadays, and for the time being, but very happy for the rest of it.
Absolutely. Was there any part of the race where you felt that there was still a chance that Max might, leave the door open for you at some point in terms of timing?
I mean, there's little bits where the tyres come back to you a little bit, and then you can push on, but Max always seemed to have an answer to everything, which is a shame. But fair play to him. He drove a good race. So tough with the wind conditions and everything, but P2 is a good result.
Congratulations. Another fantastic drive, mate. And cometh the man, cometh the hour. Here he is. Mate, there's no doubt about you. You just never give up. That was an extraordinary last few laps. You're under so much pressure for so long from Sergio in obviously in a far quicker car behind you. DRS who's trying to manipulate the move here and there. So run us through those last 2 laps, mate. That was absolutely special.
Yeah, for me it was like 30 laps that I had the pressure from Checo. But when he passed me 2 laps to the end, I thought, okay, this is gone. The podium is not possible anymore. But he braked a little bit late into 1 and said, okay, I go for it into 4. This is a phenomenal result for the team. We've been struggling for a couple of months already, especially the last 2 events with 2 retirements. So this podium is for them, for everyone in the factory, and we keep fighting until the last lap.
Absolutely. And just quickly about the turnaround, as you say, some of the developments have been a bit tricky, but this race looks like being strong in all conditions, and it's a big result for the team.
Yeah, obviously we're still learning about the car. These cars are so complex aerodynamically. So we've been experimenting a little bit to find the direction for next year, without forgetting this year that we're still competing. So happy for this result, and now to Vegas.
Well done, mate. There's life in the old dog yet. Fantastic race. Really, really special.
There certainly is. Mark Webber with the questions to the top 3. It was Max Verstappen who did it again. Harry, he's a class act, but next up is Vegas. Are they going to gamble? Is everyone going to gamble and stick it all on red?
Red for Red Bull or red for Ferrari? Verstappen will most likely win every race at the end of the year. There's only 2 more now, isn't there? He's now on over 500 points at the top of the standings, and just making it look easy. He's done all the hard work, and you could forgive him for starting to look back a bit, but no, he's still hard on it, is Max Verstappen.
That's the thing about Max. He just wants to win. Doesn't matter what race it is, it doesn't matter who's around him, he just wants to win, and that's what he's all about. It's simple. And talking about wanting to win, Norris gave it everything, Alonso gave it everything as well, and as Mark Webber said, life in the old dog, it's encouraging for Alonso.
Yeah, it certainly is, but just want to jump back on the question you asked Harry there with Vegas.
Wanting to go back to Vegas.
It's going to be cold there, Jenny. We're going to have to be taking our coats, our woolly hats to Vegas. Because it's technically an evening nighttime race. It's in the desert there, and they're expecting some temperatures to be anywhere between 5 to 7 degrees.
Oh, it's like Donington.
Yeah, we're going to be like Donington Park.
Vegas and Donington. I didn't have that comparison on the card.
No offence to Donington Park. I mean, I would be closer to home, but we're going into the unknown there, really, with Vegas, with the temperatures we're going to be experiencing at that time of day. It's a new circuit, of course, so no one's been there before. There's going to be a big buzz around the race. So maybe we say about Max Verstappen, winning all the time. I mean, I am talking it up here, and hopefully it will be a fantastic event, but who knows, maybe it'll be different for Max and Red Bull by the time we get to those real cold conditions in Vegas.
Whatever it will be a spectacle. Vegas has long been touted as a destination for F1 in the modern era, and now they've got it. Racing along the strip, and it will be early on Sunday morning in 2 weeks' time. Make a date, come back to us. We will be there live from Vegas. You can enjoy it all. But that's it. That's it from Brazil. It wasn't the greatest race, but it will go down as a great season for Max Verstappen, that is for sure. My thanks to Harry Benjamin, to Alice Powell as well. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live, in fact. And now we'll cross over to the WSL, Brighton versus Man United.
Corner, and Brighton's first corner of the game.